When Vengeance Whispers, a dark romance novel. Prologue. The night everything burned. The gunshot shattered the silence like glass breaking against marble. I pressed my hand over my mouth, biting down on my palm hard enough to taste copper. The antique desk that had been in our family for 3 generations was all that separated me from the men in my father's study, from the man who had just pulled the trigger. "Clean this up," a voice said, cold, emotionless, British accent wrapped around each word like silk over a blade. "I want no trace we were here." I was 15 years old, and I was watching my father die. Through the crack in the panel where I hid, I could see him. Vincent Marlowe, the man who had ruled the eastern seaboard's underworld with an iron fist and a warm smile for his daughter, was on his knees. Blood bloomed across his white shirt like a crimson flower, spreading with each labored breath. "Thorne," my father wheezed, and even now, even dying, there was no fear in his voice, only resignation. You don't know what you've done." "I know exactly what I've done." The man stepped into my limited field of vision, and my breath caught. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in all black like death personified. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone, all sharp angles and harsh lines. But it was his eyes that made my blood freeze. Pale gray, like winter ice, utterly empty of remorse. Killian Thorne. I'd heard my father speak the name in hushed, angry tones. The upstart. The interloper who'd been systematically dismantling my father's empire piece by piece for the last 2 years. "Your daughter," my father gasped, his hand reaching out as if he could claw back time itself. "Sienna, she's in the house, please. She's just a child." Those cold eyes flickered with something, just for a moment. Where? Safe. My father coughed, and blood flecked his lips. "Gone. You'll never find her." "But Thorne, listen to me. The deal. The Volkov deal. It's not what you think. She was." Enough. Killian Thorne raised his weapon again, and I squeezed my eyes shut, but I couldn't block out the sound. The second shot was quieter somehow, final. I don't know how long I stayed frozen in that hidden panel, my father's secret place where he'd told me to hide when the alarms first sounded. It felt like hours. It felt like seconds. Time had become meaningless, replaced by the thundering of my heart and the metallic taste of fear. "Sir." Another voice, younger, with an Eastern European accent. "The girl. We found her room. She's not there." "Keep looking." Killian's voice was closer now, and through the crack, I saw him crouch beside my father's body. For a long moment, he simply stared at the man he'd killed. Then, so quietly, I almost didn't hear it. "I'm sorry it came to this, Marlowe, but you forced my hand." He stood, and I saw him fully for the first time. Mid-20s, maybe. Handsome in a brutal way, like a fallen angel carved from marble and rage. There was blood on his hands, literally and figuratively, and as I watched, he pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and calmly wiped his fingers clean. "Dmitri," he called out, "burn it, all of it, every file, every record. This empire ends tonight." "And the girl?" Killian Thorne turned toward the desk, toward my hiding place, and for one horrible eternal second, I thought he would see me. Those pale eyes seemed to look directly at the panel, through it into me. "If she's smart," she ran. "If she's here," he paused. "Find her, bring her to me. I won't have a child's death on my conscience." But I barely heard those last words, because my father had told me what to do in this exact scenario. His voice echoed in my memory, from a conversation I'd thought was paranoia, a game. "If they ever come from me, baby girl, and I tell you to hide, you stay hidden until the house is empty. Then you run. There's a bag in the panel with you. Money, documents, everything you need. Run, and don't look back. Become someone else. Become anyone else. And one day, when you're strong enough, come back. Come back, and make them pay." My hands trembled as I felt behind me in the darkness, finding the leather bag my father had promised would be there. Inside, I felt stacks of cash, a passport, and something else. Something cold and metal. A gun. I pulled it out, staring at it in the dim light, filtering through the crack. It was small, elegant, deadly. My father had taught me to shoot when I was 13, on our estate upstate. Every Marlowe woman should know how to protect herself, he'd said. I could do it. I could push open this panel, aim, and fire. Killian Thorne was 10 feet away, his back to me, barking orders at his men. 1 bullet. That's all it would take. My finger found the trigger. Do it, something inside me screamed. He killed Daddy, he deserves to die. But my hand wouldn't stop shaking, and I was 15 and I'd never killed anything larger than a spider. The gun suddenly felt impossibly heavy, and the sob I'd been holding back clawed its way up my throat. I must have made a sound, some tiny whimper of grief and terror, because Killian Thorne's head snapped around. The study, behind the desk, there's a panel. No, 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 no. I shoved the gun back in the bag and scrambled for the secondary exit, the one my father had shown me only once. My fingers found the latch just as I heard footsteps approaching. Sir, there's a... I didn't wait to hear the rest. I pushed through the narrow passage, my dress catching on the rough wood, tearing. The passage was dark and smelled of old stone and secrets. I ran, my hands scraping against the walls, my breath coming in panicked gasps. Behind me I heard shouts, the sound of the panel being wrenched open. She was here. The hiding spot is still warm. Find her. Killian's voice was sharp now, urgent. Spread out. I want every exit covered. But my father had built this house for secrets and escapes. The passage split, and split again, a labyrinth that only a Marlowe would know. I took the left tunnel, then the right, then down the stairs that led to the old wine cellar. I could hear them behind me, getting closer, and terror gave me strength I didn't know I had. The cellar door was hidden behind a rack of vintage bottles. I burst through it, not bothering to be quiet anymore, and ran through the underground passage that led to the estate's edge. When I finally emerged, it was into the cold March night, rain soaking through my torn dress within seconds. I could see the main house from here, and my heart broke all over again. It was burning. Orange flames licked up the sides of the manor, consuming my childhood, my memories, my entire life. Smoke billowed into the night sky, and I could hear sirens in the distance. Too late. Always too late. I stood there in the rain, 15 years old and utterly alone, and watched my world burn. There, by the tree line! The shout spurred me into motion. I ran, the bag clutched to my chest, my bare feet slipping on wet grass. The forest at the edge of the estate swallowed me whole, branches whipping at my face, roots trying to trip me. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. I collapsed behind a fallen oak tree, gasping, and finally let myself look back. Through the trees I could see flashlights sweeping the grounds, searching for me, and standing at the edge of the forest, backlit by the burning house, was a silhouette I would never forget. Killian Thorne stood perfectly still, hands in his pockets, staring into the darkness where I hid. Even from this distance I could feel the weight of that gaze, those winter ice eyes trying to pierce the shadows. For a long moment he simply stood there. Then he pulled out a phone, spoke into it briefly, and turned away. I watched him walk back toward the burning house, toward my father's body, and something inside me crystallized, hardened, became sharp and cold and utterly certain. One day I promised myself, promised my father's ghost, promised the girl I'd been before this night. One day I'll come back. I'll become someone he'd never expect. I'll get close to him, I'll make him trust me, maybe even care about me. And then I'll destroy him the way he destroyed everything I loved. The rain washed away my tears, but it couldn't wash away the memory being burned into my brain. Killian Thorne's face, the sound of the gunshot, the smell of smoke and blood and endings. I pulled the passport from the bag, looking at the name my father had chosen for my new identity, Vera Ashton, British boarding school student, orphaned in a car accident, coming to live with her aunt in London. Sienna Marlowe died tonight in the ashes of her father's empire. But she would be reborn, stronger, smarter, deadly, and when she returned, Killian Thorne wouldn't see her coming until it was far too late. I took one last look at the burning house, at the only home I'd ever known, and then I turned and walked deeper into the forest. Behind me, I could hear them calling, searching, but I was already gone, already becoming someone else, already planning my revenge. The night was cold, and I was alone, but I wrapped my father's dying words around me like armor. "Run, Sienna. Become someone else. Come back stronger." I would. I'd come back so much stronger that Killian Thorne wouldn't know what hit him. Not until it was too late. Not until I'd taken everything from him, the way he'd taken everything from me. This was a promise I would keep, even if it took years, even if it took everything I had, even if it destroyed me in the process. The girl who'd hidden behind that desk was dead. The woman who would emerge from these ashes would be someone new, someone dangerous, someone who knew that revenge, like fine wine, was best served cold. And patient. So very, very patient. 8 years later, Chapter 1. The lamb walks into the wolf's den. The Thorne estate rose from the Connecticut countryside like a monument to power and old money. Gothic revival architecture, all sharp angles and dark stone, surrounded by manicured grounds that probably cost more to maintain than most people earned in a year. I'd studied this place for months. Every entrance, every security measure, every detail down to which guards worked which shifts. But seeing it in person, standing at the base of the stone steps with my portfolio in hand, made my heart pound against my ribs like a caged bird. "Steady," I told myself. "You've prepared for this. You're ready." "Miss Ashton?" A woman in her 50s, wearing a crisp black suit, stood in the open doorway. "I'm Mrs. Chen, Mr. Thorne's personal assistant. Welcome." I smiled, the expression I'd practiced 1,000 times in the mirror. Warm, but professional. Vera Ashton, renowned art restoration specialist, grateful for the opportunity to work on such a prestigious collection. Not Sienna Marlowe, who'd spent 8 years learning everything she could about art, about restoration, about getting close to powerful men who collected beautiful things, about becoming exactly the kind of person Killian Thorne would invite into his home. "Thank you for having me," I said, my British accent perfect after years of practice. "I'm excited to see the collection." Mrs. Chen led me through halls that smelled of lemon polish and old money. The interior was exactly as I'd imagined. Dark wood paneling, priceless artwork on every wall, the kind of understated luxury that screamed wealth without needing to shout. We passed a portrait, and I forced myself not to react. I recognized it. A Caravaggio, stolen from a private collection in Rome 5 years ago. Apparently, Killian Thorne's empire had expanded beyond just territory and weapons. "Mr. Thorne is very particular about his art," Mrs. Chen said as we climbed a curved staircase. "He's spent considerable time and resources building this collection. He wants only the best working on the restorations." I understand completely. I've reviewed the photographs you sent, and I'm confident I can restore the pieces to their original glory. What I didn't say, I'd also researched every piece in Killian Thorne's collection. I knew which ones were legally obtained, and which ones had disappeared from museums and private collections under mysterious circumstances. I knew he had a particular fondness for Renaissance art, especially pieces depicting biblical vengeance. The irony wasn't lost on me. We reached the 3rd floor, where Mrs. Chen opened a set of double doors. "The restoration studio. Everything you requested has been set up. You'll work here Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Mr. Thorne may occasionally check on your progress." My pulse quickened. Of course. I'd be happy to discuss the process with him. "Good." Mrs. Chen's expression was unreadable. "He should be here shortly, actually. He likes to meet everyone who works on his collection personally." "He's coming. He's actually coming, and you need to hold it together." The studio was perfect, flooded with natural light from floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds. My equipment was already set up, exactly as I'd specified. The paintings I'd be working on were carefully arranged on easels, covered with protective cloth. I set down my portfolio and walked to the window, using the moment to steady my breathing. From here I could see the edge of the forest where his property ended. 8 years ago, I'd run through trees just like those, bleeding and terrified. Today, I was walking back in through the front door. The view is something, isn't it? I spun around, and there he was. Killian Thorne had aged like fine whiskey, the years adding depth and darkness to features that had been striking at 25. At 32, he was devastating. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with the kind of build that suggested he knew his way around a gym. His dark hair was shorter now, perfectly styled in that way that probably cost a fortune to make look effortless. The sharp angles of his face had settled into something harder, more refined. But it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Still that same pale gray, like winter ice, but with something else now. Something that looked almost like weariness, buried deep beneath the cold. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than my car, and he moved with the easy confidence of a man who knew he owned everything around him, including, he probably thought, me. He didn't recognize me, why would he? The last time Killian Thorne had seen Sienna Marlowe, she'd been a 15-year-old girl in a torn dress, glimpsed for only seconds before she vanished into the night. Now, 8 years later, I was 23, my dark hair lightened to honey blonde, my eyes hidden behind blue contacts, my whole body transformed by years of yoga and self-defense training. I'd made sure every trace of that terrified girl was erased. "Mr. Thorne," I said, extending my hand. "Vera Ashton, thank you for this opportunity." His handshake was firm, brief, professional. But I felt it, that contact of skin against skin, and had to fight the urge to jerk away. This was the hand that had held the gun, the hand that had pulled the trigger. The hand I would eventually make pull a trigger again, aimed at his own empire. "Miss Ashton, I've reviewed your credentials. Impressive work in Florence, especially the Bellini restoration." "Thank you. I'm passionate about preserving these pieces for future generations." "Good." He released my hand and walked to one of the covered paintings, pulling the cloth away with surprising gentleness. Beneath was a damaged Titian, the Virgin Mary's face partially obscured by centuries of grime and ham-fisted restoration attempts. "This is the priority. Can you bring her back?" I moved closer, genuinely interested despite myself. The painting was magnificent, even damaged. "It'll take time, but yes, I can restore her." "How long?" 3 months, possibly 4, depends on what I find beneath the overpainting. He nodded, those ice-gray eyes studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. I'd been prepared for this, for the way powerful men always looked at women they considered beneath them. But there was something else in his gaze, something I couldn't quite identify. "Mrs. Chen will have informed you of the hours. You'll have full access to the studio and the collection. However, the rest of the house is off-limits unless you're accompanied." "Of course, I understand security is paramount." "It is." He turned to face me fully, and I forced myself not to step back. "I've had issues in the past with people who were more interested in information than art. I trust you won't be one of them." The irony was so thick I nearly choked on it. "I'm only interested in the paintings, Mr. Thorne." "Good." But he didn't look away, and the moment stretched between us like pulled taffy. "You come highly recommended, Miss Ashton. Dr. Carlyle at the Uffizi speaks very highly of your work." Dr. Carlyle, who I'd spent 6 months charming and impressing, who had no idea I'd sought out his mentorship specifically because I knew Killian Thorne respected his opinion. "Dr. Carlyle is a wonderful teacher," I said truthfully. "I learned so much from him. He also mentioned you're very private, that you don't socialize much, prefer to focus on your work. Art restoration requires patience and focus. I find it easier to maintain both when I keep my personal and professional lives separate." Something flickered in those cold eyes. Approval, maybe. I can respect that. I'm the same way. We stood there in the sunlight streaming through the windows, and I was acutely aware of how alone we were. How easy it would be to reach into my bag, pull out the small knife I'd started carrying, and... No, too soon. Too obvious. This is a long game, Sienna. Remember the plan. I should let you settle in, Killian said, breaking the silence. If you need anything, Mrs. Chen can arrange it. I'll check on your progress in a week or so. I look forward to showing you what I've accomplished. He nodded and moved toward the door, then paused. Miss Ashton, one more thing. My heart hammered. Yes? Welcome to my home. I hope you'll be comfortable here. The words were polite, proper, but something in his voice made them feel like more, like an invitation or a warning. I couldn't tell which. Thank you, Mr. Thorne. I'm sure I will be. He left, and I was alone with the paintings and my racing thoughts. I'd done it. I'd walked back into Killian Thorne's life, and he had no idea who I really was. I moved to the Titian, studying the Virgin Mary's damaged face. She looked serene despite the centuries of neglect, her eyes cast downward in prayer or perhaps resignation. Did you know, I thought, when you posed for this painting, that you'd outlive everyone who knew your real name? That eventually, you'd just be this image, this idea, stripped of your history? I understood that feeling intimately. Carefully, I removed my jacket and rolled up my sleeves. My hands were steady as I prepared my workspace, organizing tools I'd spent years mastering. But when I was sure I was alone, truly alone, I lifted my shirt, just enough to see the scar on my ribs. It was small, barely 3 inches long, from when I'd caught myself on a piece of broken glass while running through that passage 8 years ago. I touched it, the way I always did when I needed to remember why I was here. He killed Daddy. He burned our house. He would have killed you too if he'd found you. The scar was my reminder, my anchor, my promise. I'm back, I whispered to the empty room, to the ghost of my father, to the girl I'd been. And he has no idea what's coming. Through the window, I could see Killian Thorne crossing the grounds toward the main house, his phone to his ear. From here, he looked almost elegant, refined, not like a killer at all. But I knew better. I'd seen what those hands could do. And before this was over, before I took everything from him the way he'd taken everything from me, he would see what mine could do too. I turned back to the painting, to the Virgin Mary with her serene expression and damaged face. Let's see if I can save you, I said softly, picking up my tools. Even if I can't save myself. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Inside, I began my work, every brushstroke a step closer to revenge. The lamb had walked into the wolf's den. But this lamb had teeth of her own. And she'd spent 8 years learning exactly where to bite. Over the next week, I fell into a rhythm at the Thorne estate. Arrive at 9, work until 5. Exchange polite pleasantries with Mrs. Chen and the handful of staff I encountered. The restoration work was genuinely fascinating, which made the deception easier. I could lose myself in the delicate process of removing centuries of grime and reveal the original beauty beneath. Sometimes I wondered if that's what I was doing to myself, removing the layers, trying to find who I'd been before that night. But that girl was dead. Had to be dead. There was only Vera Ashton now, and the mission. Killian appeared sporadically, always unexpected. Once, I'd been so focused on a particularly delicate section of the Titian that I didn't hear him enter. When I finally noticed him standing in the doorway, watching me work, I nearly dropped my brush. Sorry, he said, though he didn't sound particularly apologetic. I didn't want to interrupt. You were very focused. The work requires precision. I set down my tools, acutely aware of how I must look, my hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing my stained work clothes. Did you need something? Just checking on the progress. He moved closer, studying the painting with genuine interest. She's beautiful. She's beginning to reveal herself. I agreed. There's significant damage underneath the overpainting, but the original work is extraordinary. Titian was a master of color. You really love this, don't you? It wasn't quite a question. Yes. There's something about bringing these pieces back to life, uncovering what was always there but hidden. It feels like giving them back their voice. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I felt that strange intensity again. An interesting perspective. Most people just see old paintings. Then they're not really seeing at all. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. No, I suppose they're not. We stood there in comfortable silence, both studying the painting, and for a moment, I almost forgot who he was, what he'd done. He was just a man who appreciated art, who understood the value of preservation. Then he spoke again, and the spell broke. I'm having a dinner party Friday evening. Small gathering, some colleagues and their wives. I'd like you to attend. My pulse jumped. Oh, I don't think. I insist. It would be good for you to meet some of the other collectors. They're often in need of restoration work, and I'd be happy to recommend you. It wasn't a request. We both knew that. That's very generous, I said carefully. Thank you. Good. Mrs. Chen will provide the details. He moved toward the door, then paused, just like that first day. Miss Ashton? Yes? You can call me Killian. If we're going to be working together for several months, we might as well dispense with formalities. The name felt wrong on my tongue, like poison. Then you should call me Vera. He smiled, a real smile this time, and I hated how it transformed his face, made him look almost kind. Vera, it is. After he left, I sat down on the window seat, my hands trembling. A dinner party, with his inner circle. This was an opportunity I couldn't have planned better myself. But it also meant more time in his presence, more chances to slip up, to reveal something I shouldn't. I pulled out my phone and texted the only person in the world who knew where I really was and what I was really doing. He invited me to dinner Friday. I'm in. The response came quickly. Luca, my childhood friend, the only son of my father's right-hand man, who'd helped me plan this whole elaborate revenge. Be careful. Don't let him get too close. I stared at the message, thinking about Killian's smile, the way he'd looked at the painting, the genuine interest in his voice when he'd asked about my work. Too late, I thought, but didn't type. I'm already closer than I should be. Instead, I wrote back, I know what I'm doing. But as I turned back to the Titian, to the Virgin Mary's patient face, I wondered if that was true. Because part of me, a part one didn't want to acknowledge, had felt something when Killian Thorne smiled at me. And that part terrified me more than anything else. Chapter 2. Shadows and Secrets. The black dress Mrs. Chen had arranged for me fit perfectly. Too perfectly. It hugged my curves in a way that made me feel exposed, vulnerable, even though it was entirely appropriate for a dinner party. Silk, midnight black, with a subtle shimmer that caught the light when I moved. I stared at myself in the mirror of the guest room I'd been assigned for the evening, not recognizing the woman looking back. Vera Ashton, successful art restorer, invited to dine with some of the most dangerous men on the eastern seaboard. Not Sienna Marlowe, who'd once eaten dinner in a room down the hall from where her father conducted business she was never supposed to know about. You're not her anymore, I whispered to my reflection. You can't be her. But my hands trembled as I fastened my mother's pearl necklace, the only thing I'd kept from my old life. I'd hidden it in the lining of the escape bag, and for 8 years it had been my talisman, my reminder. Tonight, it felt like armor. A knock at the door. Miss Ashton? The guests are arriving. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I'll be right down. I took one last look in the mirror, checking my contacts, my hair, my expression. Everything had to be perfect. One slip, one moment of recognition, and everything would fall apart. The dress whispered against my legs as I descended the main staircase. Below, I could hear voices, laughter, the clink of crystal. Through the open doors of the dining room, I saw the table, set for 12, with what was undoubtedly priceless china and silverware. My father had owned a set like that. Probably at the bottom of a landfill now, or sold off to pay his debts. Vera? Killian appeared at the base of the stairs, and my breath caught. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I'd spent on my entire wardrobe for this mission, his dark hair styled back, emphasizing the sharp planes of his face. But it was his eyes that held me, those winter-gray eyes tracking my descent with an intensity that made me feel like prey. Or perhaps something else entirely. "You look beautiful," he said when I reached him, and there was something in his voice I'd never heard before, something almost soft. "Thank you. The dress is lovely. Mrs. Chen has excellent taste." "I chose it, actually." He offered his arm, and I had no choice but to take it. "I thought the color would suit you." His arm was solid beneath my fingers, and I could feel the warmth of him through the expensive fabric. We were touching, my enemy and I, walking into a room full of people who'd probably applauded when my father died. Stay calm, this is what you wanted. Access to his world, his people. The dining room was full of calculated elegance. Crystal chandeliers, artwork worth millions on the walls, and 11 people who turned to look at us as we entered. I recognized several faces from my research. Antonio Russo, who controlled the ports in New Jersey. Mikhail Volkov, whose name made my skin crawl for reasons I couldn't quite remember. James Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen, who'd built a tech empire on the backs of corporate espionage. And their wives, draped in designer clothes and false smiles. "Everyone, this is Vera Ashton," Killian announced, his hand moving to the small of my back. "She's restoring several pieces in my collection. Vera, these are some colleagues and friends." Friends. As if men like these had friends rather than allies and enemies. The introductions were a blur of names and handshakes. Each one studied me with varying degrees of interest or dismissal. I smiled, played the part of the talented but slightly overwhelmed art restorer, grateful to be included in such company. Killian seated me to his right, a position of honor I hadn't expected. Across from me was Dmitry Volkov, Mikhail's son, who'd been studying me with dark, suspicious eyes since I'd entered. I knew that face. He'd been with Killian that night, one of the men searching for me. "So, Miss Ashton," Dmitry said, as the first course was served, his Russian accent thick. "How did you come to work with Mr. Thorne?" "Through Dr. Carlyle at the Uffizi," I said smoothly. "He recommended me when Killian was looking for a restorer." "And before that? Your training?" "The Courtauld Institute in London, then apprenticeships in Florence and Rome. All true, all verifiable. I've been very careful about that." "Your accent is British, but your name is French." I took a sip of wine, meeting his suspicious gaze steadily. "My father was French, my mother British. I was raised in London after they died. Also true if you considered Vera Ashton a real person. Which I'd made sure she was, at least on paper." "I'm sorry for your loss," Killian said quietly beside me, and I nearly choked on my wine. He's sorry. The man who created actual orphans is sorry about my fictional ones. "It was a long time ago," I managed. "I've learned to move forward." "That's all we can do, isn't it?" His hand briefly touched my shoulder, meant to be comforting, and I had to suppress a shudder. Move forward from our losses. I wondered what losses he thought he had. What kept a man like Killian Thorne awake at night, if anything did. The dinner proceeded with the usual small talk, business discussions disguised as casual conversation, and I played my part perfectly. Laughed at the right moments, asked intelligent questions about art, stayed quiet when the talk turned to matters I wasn't supposed to understand. But I understood everything, every veiled reference to shipments and territories, every mention of acquisitions and negotiations. This was my father's world, the one I'd grown up on the edges of, absorbing more than anyone realized. "You're very quiet, Miss Ashton," Mikhail Volkov said, his cold blue eyes assessing me. "A pretty woman who says little, rare and valuable." "I prefer listening to speaking," I said carefully. "You learn more that way." "Smart girl." He raised his glass to me. "Killian, you found a treasure." "I'm beginning to think so," Killian said, and something in his tone made my skin prickle. After dinner, the men retreated to Killian's study for cigars, and presumably real talk, while the wives gathered in the drawing room. I'd hoped to slip away, complete exhaustion, but Mrs. Russo, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, caught my arm. "Walk with me, dear. I want to show you something." She led me away from the others, through a hallway I'd never been down before. My pulse quickened. This wasn't part of the plan. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Russo, but Mr. Thorne said the house was off limits." "Call me Diana," she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "And Killian won't mind. I've known him since he was a boy, before he was what he is now." We stopped in front of a door at the end of the hall. Diana opened it, revealing a library that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, filled with leather-bound books, a stone fireplace, and windows that probably offered a stunning view in daylight. But it was the desk that made my heart stop. Antique, dark wood, carved with intricate details. I knew that desk. I'd hidden behind one exactly like it. "This was Vincent Marlowe's study, wasn't it?" Diana said quietly. "Before." The room tilted. I grabbed the doorframe for support, my carefully constructed composure cracking. "I'm sorry, I don't." "It's all right, dear. I know this is Killian's private space now, but I thought you should see it." Diana moved into the room, running her hand along the desk's edge. "Vincent Marlowe is a collector too, you know, one of the best. Killian acquired much of his collection after the incident." The incident. That's what they called it. Not murder, not assassination. An incident. "Why are you telling me this?" My voice came out strangled. Diana turned to face me, and her expression was knowing, too knowing. "Because you remind me of someone. A girl I met once, many years ago. Vincent's daughter. She had eyes like yours, before you put in those contacts." The world stopped. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" Diana moved closer, and I tensed, ready to run or fight. I wasn't sure which. "Sienna Marlowe would be about your age now. 23, 24? I'm not. I'm not going to tell anyone." She held up her hands, palms out. "If you are who I think you are, you've shown remarkable courage coming here. Stupid courage, perhaps, but remarkable nonetheless." "Who are you?" I whispered. "Someone who knew your father, someone who knows what really happened that night." Diana glanced at the door, then back to me. "Someone who thinks you should know the truth before you do something you can't take back." "The truth?" A bitter laugh escaped me. "I know the truth. Killian Thorne killed my father. I was there." "Were you? Were you really there for all of it?" Diana's voice was gentle, almost pitying. "Or did you only see the ending?" Before I could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Diana's expression shifted instantly, becoming pleasant and bland. "Oh, there you are, Miss Ashton. I was just showing you Killian's library. Isn't it magnificent?" Killian appeared in the doorway, his eyes moving from Diana to me, assessing. "I see Diana's giving you the unauthorized tour." "I'm sorry," I said quickly. "She said you wouldn't mind." "I don't." But his gaze lingered on my face, and I wondered what he saw there. "Are you all right? You look pale." "Just a bit overwhelmed. It's been a long evening." "Let me take you back to your room." He offered his arm again, and I had no choice but to take it. Over my shoulder I saw Diana watching us, her expression unreadable. What did she mean? What truth? Killian was silent as we walked through the halls, and I was too rattled to make conversation. When we reached the guest room, he paused at the door. "I want to apologize," he said quietly. "I shouldn't have pushed you to come tonight. You're here to work on the paintings, not be paraded in front of my associates." "It's fine. I appreciate the opportunity to network." Still, it was presumptuous of me. He looked down at me, and in the dim hallway light, his eyes seemed less cold, almost uncertain. "I find myself wanting to know you better, Vera. Beyond just your professional expertise. Is that inappropriate?" My heart hammered. This wasn't part of the plan. He wasn't supposed to be interested in me as a person, just as an employee. "I'm not sure it's wise," I said carefully. "Given our professional relationship." "Probably not." But he didn't move away. Instead, he reached up, and I froze as his fingers brushed a strand of hair back from my face. "You're very beautiful. I noticed it the first day, but tonight you took my breath away. I should have stepped back, should have maintained the boundaries. But I stood there, caught in his gaze, and for one horrible, traitorous moment, I felt something other than hate. He was so close, I could see the darker flecks in his gray eyes, could smell his cologne, expensive and subtle, could feel the warmth radiating from his body. This was the man who'd killed my father, who'd burned my home, who'd made me an orphan, and I was standing here, letting him touch me, look at me like that. I should go, I whispered. Yes, but neither of us moved. Vera, I don't usually. I keep my distance from people. It's safer, simpler, but there's something about you that makes me want to break that rule. Don't. The word came out sharper than I intended. Please don't. He blinked, and I saw hurt flash across his face before his expression shuddered. I apologize. That was completely inappropriate. I'll see you Monday. He stepped back, and I felt the loss of his warmth like a physical thing. Before I could stop myself, before I could think about what I was doing, I caught his hand. It's not that I struggled for words that wouldn't be a complete lie. You make me nervous. I've spent my whole life around art, not people. Especially not people like you. People like me, his voice was flat. You mean dangerous people. I mean powerful people. People who could destroy me with a word if they wanted to. Something in his face softened. I would never hurt you, Vera. I can promise you that. The words were like a knife to my chest. You already have, I wanted to scream. You destroyed me before you ever knew I existed. Instead, I squeezed his hand once, then let go. Good night, Killian. Good night. I slipped into the room and closed the door, leaning against it as my legs finally gave out. I slid down to the floor, my carefully maintained composure finally cracking. What was I doing? I was supposed to hate him, destroy him, not stand in hallways letting him touch my hair and say things that made my traitorous heart race. And Diana's words kept echoing in my mind. Were you really there for all of it, or did you only see the ending? What could that possibly mean? I'd seen him shoot my father. I'd heard the gunshot, seen the body, watched my home burn. Unless... I pulled out my phone and texted Luca. Diana Russo knows who I am, and she says there's more to that night than I know. What aren't you telling me? The response took longer than usual. When it came, it made my blood run cold. Get out of there. Now. Diana Russo is Mikhail Volkov's sister, and the Volkovs were the ones who really wanted your father dead. I stared at the message, my mind reeling. The Volkovs. I'd heard that name tonight, but I'd been too focused on Killian to pay attention. But wait. Dmitry Volkov had been there that night. And my father's last words, the ones cut off by the second gunshot. The Volkov deal. It's not what you think. She was... She. He'd said she. My mother had died when I was 10. Cancer. Quick and brutal. But what if... Another text came through. Sienna, please. You don't know what you're walking into. Your father wasn't who you thought he was. Neither is Thorne. I turned off my phone and sat in the darkness, my mind spinning. For 8 years, I'd built my entire identity around avenging my father, around destroying Killian Thorne. But what if the story I'd been telling myself was wrong? What if the monster I'd been hunting wasn't the one I thought? A sound made me look up. Someone was moving in the hallway, their footsteps soft but distinct. I crept to the door and peered through the keyhole. Dmitry Volkov stood outside Killian's study, the one that had been my father's. He was on his phone, speaking in rapid Russian. I couldn't understand all of it, but I caught enough. Girl, Marlowe, suspicious. My blood turned to ice. He knew, or at least suspected. I watched him end the call and slip into the study, closing the door behind him. Every instinct screamed at me to stay in my room, to play it safe, but I'd spent 8 years preparing for this. And if Dmitry was in that study, in my father's old study, looking for something, I slipped out of my room, barefoot, my heels in my hand. The hallway was dark, lit only by wall sconces, set to their lowest setting. I could hear music and conversation from downstairs. The party still going. The study door was slightly ajar. I pressed myself against the wall and listened. Dmitry was searching for something, opening drawers, moving papers, Then, his voice. Where did Marlowe hide it? It has to be here. What was he looking for? What had my father hidden that was worth searching for 8 years later? A hand clamped over my mouth, and I was yanked backward into the shadows. I tried to scream, tried to fight, but the grip was iron. Then, a whisper in my ear. Don't make a sound. Killian. He held me against his chest, one hand over my mouth, the other around my waist. I could feel his heart beating against my back, steady and sure. Dmitri is dangerous. He breathed, so quietly I almost didn't hear. Whatever you think you're doing, stop. I wanted to struggle, to demand answers, but the study door opened, and Dmitri emerged. He looked both ways down the hall, his face sharp with frustration, then moved back toward the main house. Only when his footsteps faded did Killian release me. I spun to face him, and in the darkness I could barely make out his features, but his eyes caught the light, glinting like a predator's. What are you doing out here? His voice was low, dangerous. Guests aren't allowed in this wing. I got lost looking for the bathroom. Try again. He stepped closer, and I had nowhere to go, my back against the wall. You were watching Dmitri. Why? My mind raced. I heard something, got curious. Stupid, I know. Very stupid. He braced his hands on either side of my head, caging me in. Or very brave. I'm not sure which yet. Does it matter? It might. His face was inches from mine now. Tell me something, Vera. Who are you really? The question hit like a physical blow. What? You appear out of nowhere, with perfect credentials and a mysterious past. You're beautiful, talented, and just professional enough to seem real. But there's something about you that doesn't add up. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? His hand moved to my throat, not squeezing, just resting there. He could feel my pulse racing, I knew. Your heartbeat says otherwise. You're scaring me. Good, you should be scared. Because if I find out you're here to hurt me, to spy on me, to betray me in any way. He leaned in, his lips brushing my ear. I'll make you wish you'd never walked through my door. Then he was gone, stepping back, leaving me gasping against the wall. Go to bed, Miss Ashton, and stay out of places you don't belong. He walked away, disappearing into the shadows, and I stood there shaking. He suspected. Not the truth, not yet, but he suspected something. I made my way back to my room on trembling legs and locked the door behind me. Then I sat on the bed and finally let myself fall apart. This was all wrong. Diana's hints, Dimitri's searching, Killian's suspicion. Nothing was going according to plan. And worst of all, when Killian had held me against the wall, his hand on my throat, I hadn't just felt fear. I'd felt alive. God help me, but part of me had wanted him to close that last inch between us, to kiss me, even as I hated him. I touched the scar, on my ribs, my anchor, my reminder, but for the first time since that night, I wondered if revenge was worth becoming the monster I'd need to be to achieve it. Outside, thunder rumbled. A storm was coming, and I was right in its path. Chapter 3. The Man Who Cannot Kill. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Killian's face in the darkness, felt his hand on my throat, heard his words, I'll make you wish you'd never walked through my door. But worse than the threat was the memory of my own reaction, the way my body had responded to his proximity, his touch. The way some traitorous part of me had wanted to lean into him instead of away. By dawn, I'd made a decision. I was leaving. This mission was compromised, my cover potentially blown. The smart thing, the safe thing, was to disappear before Dmitri or Killian or whoever else was suspicious could confirm their doubts. I'd packed my bag and was halfway to the door when my phone buzzed. Luca, don't run. Not yet. I'm sending you something you need to see. A minute later, files started arriving. Police reports, witness statements, autopsy records, all about my father's death, but things I'd never seen before. Things that had been classified, or buried, or hidden. I sank onto the bed, scrolling through them with shaking hands. The first report stopped my heart. Multiple shooters identified. Primary shooter, Killian Thorne. Secondary shooter, unknown. Victim showed evidence of poisoning prior to shooting. Estimated time of poison administration, 6 to 8 hours before death. Someone had poisoned my father before Killian ever pulled that trigger. The next document was worse. A classified intelligence report, barely redacted. Vincent Marlowe under investigation for human trafficking. Primary target, his own daughter, Sienna Marlowe, age 15. Sale arranged to Mikhail Volkov for $5 million. Transaction scheduled for night of March 15th, the night he died. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. No, that couldn't be right. My father loved me. He'd protected me, hidden me, told me to run. But Killian's words from that night echoed in my memory, the ones I'd barely heard through my terror. Your father was going to sell you too, Sienna. That's why I killed him that night. The deal was already made. I'd thought it was just something Diana had said to manipulate me, but here it was, in black and white. Official reports, evidence. My father had been selling me, and Killian Thorne had killed him to stop it. A knock at the door made me jump. Miss Ashton, breakfast is served if you'd like to join Mr. Thorne in the dining room. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like I'd seen a ghost. Maybe I had, the ghost of the man I thought my father was. Thank you. I'll be down shortly. I splashed cold water on my face, reapplied makeup with shaking hands, and tried to steady my breathing. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. But I couldn't let Killian see that I knew. Not yet. Not until I understood what this meant. Not until I figured out who the real enemy was. The dining room was flooded with morning light. Killian sat at the head of the table, reading something on his tablet, a cup of coffee at his elbow. He looked up when I entered, and I saw shadows under his eyes that matched my own. Good morning, he said, his voice carefully neutral. I wasn't sure you'd come down. I considered leaving, actually. Honesty seemed like the safest lie, after last night. I owe you an apology, he set down the tablet. I was harsh. Suspicious. You didn't deserve that. I sat across from him, accepting the coffee a silent server poured. Was I wrong to be curious about what Dmitri was doing? No, you were smart to be cautious around him. Killian's jaw tightened. Dmitri Volkov is dangerous. More dangerous than I am, and that's saying something. Why do you work with him if he's dangerous? Because his father, Mikhail, controls half the ports on the eastern seaboard. Because in my world, you keep your enemies closer than your friends. Because... He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Because 8 years ago, I made choices that tied me to the Volkovs in ways I can't easily break. 8 years ago. The night my father died. What kind of choices? His eyes met mine, and I saw something in them I'd never seen before. Something that looked almost like regret. The kind that keep me awake at night. Before I could respond, before I could decide what to say, an alarm shattered the morning quiet. Killian was on his feet instantly, his hand going to a weapon I hadn't even realized he was carrying. Stay here. Don't move. What's happening? We're under attack. He was gone before I could ask more questions, shouting orders to security personnel who materialized from nowhere. Through the windows, I could see black SUVs speeding up the drive, and then the unmistakable sound of gunfire. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, to get as far from the violence as possible. But instead, I found myself moving toward the front of the house, toward the sound of breaking glass and shouting. The foyer was chaos. Killian's security team had taken defensive positions, returning fire at whoever was trying to breach the front entrance. And in the middle of it all was Killian himself, calm and controlled, directing his people with the precision of someone who'd done this before. East Wing is compromised, someone shouted. They're coming through the gallery. Killian swore. Fall back to the safe room. Get the staff out through the tunnels. Tunnels. Of course he had tunnels, just like my father had. A man in black tactical gear burst through the front door, weapon raised. He aimed at Killian's back, and I screamed a warning without thinking. Behind you! Killian spun, returning fire in one smooth motion. The attacker went down, but 2 more came through behind him. Killian took cover behind a marble pillar, and I saw him wince, his hand going to his side. He'd been hit. I should have felt satisfaction. He was injured, possibly dying, and I'd done nothing. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it, for him to suffer? But instead, I felt terror. "The girl!" one of the attackers shouted, and I realized with horror that they were pointing at me. "Volkov wants her alive!" Everything clicked into place. This wasn't an attack on Killian. It was an attack to get to me. Because Dmitri had figured out who I was. And his father still wanted to complete the transaction my father had started 8 years ago. "Vera, run!" Killian's voice cut through my paralysis. "The study. There's a panic room." But I wasn't listening. Because one of the attackers was advancing on him, and Killian was bleeding, slowing down, and I knew that look in the attacker's eyes. He was going for the kill. I'd spent 8 years learning self-defense, 8 years preparing to survive in a world where I couldn't trust anyone, 8 years becoming someone who could protect herself. The heavy marble sculpture on the hall table was in my hands before I'd consciously decided to grab it. I swung with every ounce of strength I had, connecting with the attacker's skull just as he pulled the trigger. The gunshot went wild, shattering a window instead of Killian's head. The man crumpled, and I stood there, breathing hard, the sculpture still clutched in my hands, staring at what I'd done. "Vera." Killian was beside me, his hand on my shoulder, turning me away from the body. Look at me, not him." I met his eyes, and saw shock there. Shock and something else. Respect, maybe, or recognition of what I'd just become. "Are you hurt?" His hands were on my face, my arms, checking for injuries with surprising gentleness, considering the chaos around us. "No, but you are." I looked at his side, where blood was seeping through his white shirt. "You need medical attention." "Later. Right now, we need to get you somewhere safe." He grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the back of the house. His security team had forced the attackers back, but I could hear more vehicles arriving. "They came for you." "Why would Volkov's men come for you?" "I don't know," I lied, because how could I explain without explaining everything? We reached the study, my father's old study, and Killian pressed something on the wall panel. A section swung open, revealing a modern panic room with monitors, weapons, and supplies. "Get in. Don't come out until I come for you." "What about you?" "I'll handle this." He was already turning away, back toward the fight. I caught his arm. "You're bleeding. You'll die out there." "I've survived worse." But his face was pale, his breathing labored. He was losing too much blood. "Let me help." "You already did. You saved my life out there." He looked at me with those winter gray eyes, and for the first time, I saw genuine emotion in them. Confusion. Gratitude. Something warmer. "Why?" "After last night, after I threatened you, why would you save me?" I didn't have an answer, at least, not one that made sense. "Because," I struggled for words, "because you're not the monster I thought you were." His expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his features. Then he leaned in, and for one breathless moment, I thought he was going to kiss me. Instead, he pressed his forehead to mine, just for a second. "Stay alive, Vera, please. Just stay alive." Then he was gone, back into the chaos, and I was alone in the panic room with my racing thoughts and the smell of gunpowder in the air. Through the monitors, I watched the battle unfold, watched Killian fight with brutal efficiency despite his wound, watched his security team force the attackers back, saw bodies fall on both sides. And on one screen I saw Dmitri Volkov standing outside the gates, phone to his ear, watching it all with cold calculation. He'd done this, set this up, and he'd done it because of me. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Did you really think you could hide from us, Sienna? Your father made a promise. We intend to collect." Then another message, this one with a photo attached. Me, taken today, in this house. Someone inside was feeding them information. The battle outside was winding down. Killian's security had won, the attackers in retreat. Through the monitor, I watched Killian lean against a wall, pressing his hand to his bleeding side, his face gray with pain. I could stay in here. Stay safe. Let him deal with the aftermath. Or I could do what every instinct I'd developed over 8 years told me was insane. I opened the panic room door. Mrs. Chen was in the hallway, directing staff to secure the perimeter. She saw me and her eyes widened. "Miss Ashton, Mr. Thorne said you were to stay in the safe room." "Where's the medical kit? The serious one, not first aid." "The clinic, 2nd floor, west wing. But—" I was already running. The clinic was exactly what I'd expect in a place like this. Well-equipped, sterile, with enough supplies to handle serious trauma. I grabbed what I needed and ran back downstairs. Killian was in the foyer, being supported by 2 of his men. His face was the color of old paper, and there was too much blood. "Sir, we need to get you to the hospital," one of the men was saying. "No hospitals. Too exposed. Get Dr. Morrison here, and—" "Dr. Morrison is 2 hours away." I stepped forward, the medical kit in my hands. "I can help." "Vera, you shouldn't be out here." "Well, I am, and you're going to bleed out if someone doesn't deal with that wound in the next 10 minutes. So you have 2 choices. Let me help, or die, proving you don't need anyone." He stared at me for a long moment, then actually laughed. It was a pained, breathless sound, but genuine. "You're remarkable. Has anyone ever told you that?" "Shut up and lie down." They got him to a couch in his study. The irony of that wasn't lost on me, and I went to work. The bullet had gone through, which was lucky. Unlucky was the damage it had done on the way through. "This is going to hurt," I warned. "Everything hurts," but his hand found mine, squeezed once. "Thank you for not leaving me to die." "Don't thank me yet. I might kill you trying to save you." I worked quickly, cleaning the wound, my hands steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through me. Killian gritted his teeth but didn't make a sound, even when I had to probe for fabric fragments. "Where did you learn this?" he asked, through clenched teeth. "Medical training. I thought about becoming a doctor before I fell in love with art." Not entirely a lie. Sienna Marlowe had dreamed of medical school before her world ended. "You're full of surprises." His eyes were half closed. Whether from pain or blood loss, I couldn't tell. "Saving my life. Attacking a trained mercenary with a sculpture. Not running when any sane person would." Maybe I'm not sane. Maybe neither of us is. I finished stitching and bandaging, my hands finally starting to shake now that the immediate crisis was over. "You need antibiotics. And you should really see a real doctor." "You are a real doctor, apparently. Or, close enough." He caught my hand before I could pull away. "Vera, those men came for you. They knew your name. How?" The moment of truth. I could keep lying, keep pretending. Or I could give him something real, even if it wasn't the whole truth. "My past isn't as clean as I've led you to believe," I said carefully. "I've spent years running from certain people. I thought I'd covered my tracks well enough, but apparently not." "What people? Who are you running from?" "Men who think they own me. Men who made deals they had no right to make." All true from a certain perspective. His grip on my hand tightened. "The Volkovs. You're running from the Volkovs." "You're very perceptive." "I'm very familiar with their methods." Something dark crossed his face. "How did you get away from them?" "Someone helped me. A long time ago." I looked at him, really looked at him, and decided to take a risk. Someone killed the man who was going to sell me. I watched the realization dawn in his eyes, watched him put together pieces he hadn't even known were missing. "Vera, tell me your real name." "Why?" "So you can confirm what you already suspect? So I can understand what's happening. So I can protect you." "You can't protect me from this. No one can." "Try me." His voice was steel wrapped in silk. "Tell me who you really are." I stood, putting distance between us, my heart hammering. This was it. The moment everything could fall apart. My name is Sienna, I said quietly. Sienna Marlowe, and 8 years ago, you killed my father. The silence that followed was deafening. Killian's face went through a dozen expressions in as many seconds. Shock, recognition, understanding, and finally, something that looked almost like relief. Sienna, he breathed. My God, I've been looking for you for 8 years. Looking for me? I laughed bitterly. To finish the job. To make sure you were safe. He tried to sit up, winced, settled for leaning forward. That night, after you ran, I sent people to find you, to protect you. I knew what your father had planned, knew the Volkovs would come for you. I wanted to get you somewhere safe before they could. That's a nice story. It's the truth. His eyes burned into mine. Your father was selling you, Sienna, to Mikhail Volkov for $5 million. When I found out, when I realized what was happening, I had to stop it, even if it meant starting a war. So you killed him. How noble. Yes, I killed him, and I'd do it again, because the alternative was letting a 15-year-old girl be sold into a hell I wouldn't wish on anyone. He struggled to his feet, swaying slightly. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to understand, but I am asking you to believe that I never wanted to hurt you. You destroyed my life. Your father destroyed your life. His voice rose, then fell again, controlled. I just pulled the trigger, but the gun was loaded long before I walked into that room. I wanted to argue, to rage, to hurt him the way I'd been hurt. But the files Luca had sent me, the evidence, all of it, supported his story. And God help me, I was starting to believe him. Why? My voice broke. Why did you care what happened to me? You didn't know me. No, but I knew what men like Volkov do to girls like you. And I'd spent my whole life becoming a monster so I could fight other monsters. I had to draw the line somewhere. He took a step toward me, then another. That night when I saw you in that hiding place, just for a second before you ran, I saw terror. Pure, absolute terror. And I promised myself that if you got away, if you survived, I'd make sure you stayed safe. By having people search for me? By making sure the Volkovs thought you were dead, by spreading rumors that you died in the fire, by paying off anyone who might have information about where you'd gone. He was close now, close enough that I could see the pain in his eyes, the exhaustion, by spending 8 years trying to find you myself so I could make sure you were really okay. This is insane. Yes. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and touched my cheek. You came back to kill me, didn't you? That was your plan. Get close, gain my trust, and destroy me. There was no point in lying. Yes. I can't blame you for that. If someone had killed my father, even if he'd deserved it, I'd want revenge too. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. But I'm asking you, begging you to let me explain. Let me show you what really happened that night, and then, if you still want me dead, I'll hand you the gun myself. Why would you do that? Because I can't kill you, Sienna Marlowe. His voice was raw, honest, stripped of all pretense. I couldn't kill you then, when you were a terrified girl hiding in the shadows. And I can't kill you now, even though I know you're here to hurt me. You've become my one weakness. The thing I can't destroy, no matter how much danger it puts me in. I stared at him, at this man I'd hated for so long, and saw something I'd never expected. I saw someone as broken as I was. Someone who'd made terrible choices for complicated reasons. Someone who was telling me the truth even though it would be easier to lie. I saved your life today, I whispered. I don't even know why. I do. His forehead rested against mine, just like before, but this time it felt different. Intimate. Real. Because despite everything, despite all the lies and the hate and the years between us, you know I'm not the enemy. Not really. Then who is? The same people who've been the enemy all along. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. The Volkovs. And they're not going to stop coming for you. Not now that they know you're alive. So what do we do? We? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Does that mean you're not going to kill me? I'm undecided. But my hand was on his chest, feeling his heartbeat, and I knew I was lying. Tell me everything, the truth, all of it, and then I'll decide. Fair enough, he swayed, and I remembered he'd just been shot. But maybe after I don't die from blood loss? I couldn't help it. I laughed, a real laugh, the first I'd had in years. You're ridiculous. And you're beautiful when you laugh. Even when you're covered in my blood and plotting my murder. Shut up and sit down before you fall down. He sat, and I checked his bandages, making sure he wasn't still bleeding. And as I worked, I felt the weight of 8 years of hate and grief and rage begin to shift. Not disappear, not forgive, but shift into something else, something more complicated. Something that might eventually become understanding. Or maybe something even more dangerous than hate. Outside, sirens wailed as local police finally arrived. Inside, Killian Thorne and Sienna Marlowe sat in a room stained with blood and lies, and tried to figure out if they were enemies, allies, or something neither of them had words for yet. The man who couldn't kill her. The girl who'd stopped wanting him dead. And a future that was suddenly, terrifyingly uncertain. Chapter 4. When lies taste like truth, the police came and went. Their questions perfunctory at best. Men like Killian Thorne didn't answer to local law enforcement. They owned it. I watched from the second-floor window as bodies were loaded into unmarked vans. Evidence disappeared, and the official story was crafted. A home invasion. Perpetrators unknown. No fatalities among the residents. The mercenary I'd hit with the sculpture wasn't dead, just unconscious. He'd be gone before he woke up, taken somewhere for questioning. I tried not to think about what that meant. I tried not to think about the fact that I'd nearly killed a man today. That I had saved Killian's life. That everything I thought I knew was unraveling like thread pulled from a tapestry. You should eat something. I turned from the window. Killian stood in the doorway, looking better than he had any right to after being shot. He'd showered and changed, though he moved carefully, one hand pressed lightly to his bandaged side. I'm not hungry. Liar. He stepped into the guest room, my room now, apparently, since he'd insisted I stay until the security situation was resolved. You haven't eaten since breakfast, and you've had enough adrenaline to power a small city. Your body needs fuel. Since when do you care about my nutritional needs? Since I realized who you are. He moved to the window beside me, looking out at the grounds being scrubbed clean of violence. Since I understood that you've spent 8 years alone, running, surviving on your own, someone should have been taking care of you. I don't need taking care of. No. His voice was soft. You don't. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be cared for anyway. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the pain he was trying to hide. You should be resting, not worrying about me. I've been worrying about you for 8 years. Another few hours won't kill me. The bullet didn't manage it, so I think I'm safe. Despite everything, I smiled. You have a terrible sense of humor. You're smiling, though. I'll count that as a win. He held out his hand. Come with me. Let me show you something. Then I'll explain everything, and you can decide if you still want me dead. I should have said no, should have maintained distance, protected myself. But I was tired of walls and lies and the weight of hate I'd been carrying. So I took his hand. He led me through the house, down hallways I'd never been allowed in before, past rooms full of priceless art and expensive silence. We descended a staircase I hadn't known existed, into what looked like a wine cellar but opened into something else entirely. A room lined with filing cabinets and computer servers, walls covered in photographs and documents connected by red string like something from a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. Welcome to my obsession, Killian said quietly. I stepped closer to the walls, and my breath caught. Because every photograph, every document, every piece of evidence pinned there was about one thing. human trafficking networks. And at the center of it all was my father's face. "What is this?" My voice came out strangled. "This is what I've spent the last 8 years doing. Dismantling the networks your father helped build. Saving the people he would have destroyed." Killian moved to stand beside me, his shoulder almost touching mine. "Your father wasn't just an arms dealer, Sienna. He was one of the biggest human traffickers on the eastern seaboard. Children, mostly. Girls as young as 12, boys even younger. Sold to the highest bidder." No. But even as I said it, I was looking at the evidence. Bills of sale with my father's signature. Photographs of children who'd disappeared. Testimonies from survivors. The Volkovs were his primary customers. Mikhail Volkov has very specific tastes, and your father catered to them. For years. Killian's voice was carefully neutral, but I heard the anger underneath. "I found out about it 2 years before that night. Started gathering evidence, building a case. But your father was careful. Too careful. I couldn't touch him legally." "So you decided to kill him?" "No, I decided to shut down his operation. I bought up his debts, cut off his supply lines, turned his allies against him. I wanted to destroy his empire and let him live with the consequences." He pulled a folder from one of the cabinets and handed it to me. "Then I found out about the deal he'd made. The one involving you." My hands shook as I opened the folder. Inside were contracts, emails, bank transfers, all dated the weeks before my father's death. All arranging for the sale of Sienna Marlowe, age 15, to Mikhail Volkov for $5 million. "He was going to sell his own daughter," I whispered. "He was desperate. I'd backed him into a corner financially, and the Volkovs offered him a way out. All he had to do was give them you." Killian's hand settled on my shoulder, warm and steady. "When I found out, I gave him an ultimatum. Call off the deal, or I'd kill him myself. He refused, said the contract was binding, that the Volkovs would come after both of you if he backed out. So you killed him to save me." "I killed him to stop him, to end his empire before he could hurt anyone else. You being in that house that night was... I didn't know you were home. I thought you were at boarding school, safe, when your father told me you were there, that you were hiding somewhere." His voice roughened. "I've never been so terrified in my life." I turned to face him, and saw something I'd never expected in those winter gray eyes. Genuine emotion. Raw, unguarded feeling. "You looked for me after. I tore that estate apart. Had my people search for weeks. I thought you might be dead, buried in the rubble or lost in the woods. When I finally accepted that you'd gotten away, I didn't know if I was relieved or more terrified." He reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear in a gesture that was becoming familiar. "The Volkovs were hunting you. They'd paid for you, in their minds, and they wanted their property. I had to make them believe you were dead." "How?" "I found a girl, same age, similar build. She died in a car accident, no family to claim her. I staged it to look like you died in the fire, used dental records that had been adjusted. Buried her as you." His jaw tightened. "Then I made sure the Volkovs knew their merchandise had been destroyed. You faked my death. I gave you a chance to disappear, to become someone else. I thought," he laughed bitterly, "I thought you'd take that chance and run as far from this world as possible. Build a normal life. Maybe go to college, fall in love, forget that Vincent Marlowe had ever been your father. Instead, I spent 8 years planning to kill you. Instead, you became someone remarkable, an expert in your field, successful, independent. You built a whole life, Sienna. Even if you built it on hate, it's still impressive as hell." I looked around the room, at 8 years of work documented on these walls. At the children he'd saved, the networks he'd dismantled. At the obsessive detail with which he'd hunted down every piece of my father's legacy. "Why?" I asked. Why go to all this trouble? You didn't know me. You owed me nothing. Because I killed your father in front of you. Because even though he deserved it, even though I'd do it again, I took something from you that night. He turned me to face him fully, his hands on my shoulders. And because when I saw you for that split second, terrified and hiding, something in me broke. Or maybe it was the first thing that ever made me feel human. I don't know. But I couldn't just walk away from you. That's insane. Yes. His hands slid down my arms, leaving trails of heat. Most things about me are. We stood there in the dim light of his obsession room, surrounded by the evidence of my father's sins and Killian's redemption, and I felt something shift fundamentally in my understanding of the world. My father had been the monster. Killian had been the man trying to stop him. And I'd spent 8 years hating the wrong person. I don't know what to do with this, I whispered. I've built my entire adult life around hating you, around making you pay. If you're not the villain, if you're actually good, then who am I? You're Sienna Marlowe, survivor, artist. Apparently, someone who can brain a mercenary with a marble sculpture when necessary. His smile was gentle. You're whoever you choose to be now. The past doesn't have to define you, says the man who spent 8 years defined by one night. Fair point, he laughed, then winced. Ow, don't make me laugh. It hurts. Good, you deserve to hurt a little, but I was smiling as I said it, and we both knew something had changed between us. Come on, he said, taking my hand. Let me feed you. Then we need to talk about what happens next. What do you mean? The Volkovs know you're alive now. They're going to come for you again. And next time, I might not be here to stop them. The warmth that had been building inside me froze. What are you saying? I'm saying you need to disappear again. New identity, new location. I have resources, contacts. I can set you up somewhere safe, somewhere they'll never find you. You want me to run? I want you to live. His hand tightened on mine, even if it means I never see you again. Dinner was a strange, quiet affair. Mrs. Chen had prepared something simple but elegant, and we ate in the smaller dining room rather than the formal one. It felt almost domestic, if you ignored the armed security patrolling outside and the fact that we were eating in a house where people had tried to kill us hours earlier. Tell me about Vera Ashton, Killian said over wine. The person you became. What do you want to know? Everything. Where you went, how you survived. What made you decide to come back? So I told him. About the first terrifying months in London, living with a woman who existed only on paper, attending a boarding school where nobody knew my real name. About discovering art restoration as something that made sense when nothing else did. About years of study and apprenticeship, becoming genuinely skilled at something that had started as just cover. Dr. Carlyle said you were one of his best students, Killian said. He had no idea why you sought him out specifically. Because I knew you respected his opinion, I needed the perfect recommendation to get into your house. It worked. You're very good at this. The long game, I mean. Patient, strategic, ruthless when you need to be. He studied me over his wine glass. You'd make an excellent addition to my organization if you weren't planning my murder. Who says I'm not still planning it? Are you? I met his eyes, those ice-gray eyes that had haunted my nightmares for 8 years, and found I couldn't lie. I don't know what I'm planning anymore. Everything I thought I knew was wrong. Not everything. Your father still died. Your life still changed forever. I still pulled the trigger. He set down his glass. Those things are true, even if the reasons behind them weren't what you thought. Are you trying to make me hate you again? Because it's working. No. I'm trying to make sure you see me clearly. Not as a hero, because I'm not. But not as a villain either. Just as a man who made hard choices and tried to live with the consequences. And what about my choices? What about the fact that I came here planning to destroy you? I think, he said slowly, that you came here looking for answers, The revenge was just the framework you built around that need. Now you have your answers, and you're trying to figure out what comes next. He was right, damn him. He was absolutely right. I hate that you're insightful. I hate that you're making me question 8 years of carefully maintained emotional distance. We stared at each other across the table, and something electric passed between us. Not hate, not anymore, but not quite trust either. Something more dangerous than both. I should go, I said, standing. This is too much, too fast. I need to think. Of course. He stood as well, moving around the table. Sienna, before you go, there's something else you should know. I'm not sure I can handle any more revelations today. This one is important. He was close now, close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the darker flecks in his gray eyes. The reason the Volkovs want you so badly, even after all these years, it's not just about the deal they made with your father. Then what is it? You're your father's heir. Everything he owned, every secret, every piece of leverage he had over powerful people, it all passed to you when he died. My stomach dropped. What? He had a will, a real one, not the fake one that was probated. It left everything to you, including information that could destroy half the crime families on the East Coast. The Volkovs have been looking for it for 8 years. He pulled out his phone and showed me a document. I found it 6 months ago. It's the real reason I was so interested when Vera Ashton appeared with perfect credentials and a mysterious past. I thought you might be coming for your inheritance. I stared at the will, at my father's signature, at the clause that made me one of the most valuable targets in the criminal underworld. This is why they won't stop hunting me. Yes, and it's why I can't let you go alone. His hand cupped my cheek, his thumb brushing my skin. I know you don't trust me. I know you might never forgive me. But I promised myself 8 years ago that I'd keep you safe, and I don't break my promises. Killian, I'm not asking for anything. Not forgiveness, not understanding, not even for you to stay. I'm just asking you to let me help protect you until we can figure out how to end this, how to make you safe permanently. I should have said no. Should have walked away from this complicated, dangerous man who'd killed my father and saved my life in the same night, who looked at me like I was something precious and spoke to me like an equal. But instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, my eyes closing as his warmth seeped into me. 1 week, I whispered. I'll stay 1 week. Let you explain the rest. Show me whatever evidence you have. And then I decide what happens next. 1 week, he agreed. And Sienna, thank you. For what? For giving me a chance to be something other than the man who ruined your life. I opened my eyes and found him looking at me with such raw honesty that it stole my breath. This close, I could see the faint scar on his jaw, the exhaustion etched around his eyes, the vulnerability he kept hidden from everyone else. I should hate you, I said. You should, he agreed. I want to hate you. I know. But I don't think I can anymore. Thank God, he breathed, and then his lips were on mine. The kiss was nothing like I'd imagined. Not hard or demanding or violent. It was soft, questioning, almost reverent. His hand cradled my face like I was something breakable, and his other arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me closer but giving me room to pull away if I wanted. I didn't want to. I kissed him back, my hands fisting in his shirt, my body molding to his despite every logical reason why this was a terrible idea. He tasted like wine and secrets, and when he deepened the kiss, I made a sound I'd never made before, something between a gasp and a moan. He pulled back immediately, his eyes searching mine. Too much? Not enough, I admitted, and pulled him back down. This kiss was different, hungrier, more desperate. His hands tangled in my hair, and I pressed closer, feeling the heat of him through his clothes, the solid strength of his body. When his lips moved to my jaw, my neck, I tilted my head back, giving him access, lost in sensation. Sienna, he murmured against my skin, we should stop. You're confused, overwhelmed. This isn't fair to you. I'm a grown woman. I can decide what's fair to me. You spent 8 years hating me. 8 years. You can't just switch that off because I told you a different story. Watch me. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I'm not confused. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm choosing this, choosing you, just for tonight. Is that okay? His eyes darkened, and I saw the moment his control slipped. It's more than okay, but tomorrow we talk. About everything, and if you still want to walk away, I won't stop you. Deal. He kissed me again, and this time there was nothing tentative about it. He kissed me like I was air, and he was drowning, like he'd wanted this for longer than made sense. His hands were everywhere, reverent but desperate, and when he lifted me onto the dining table, scattering wine glasses in the process, I didn't protest. Your side, I gasped, as his lips found the sensitive spot below my ear. Your wound. Worth it. His hands slid under my shirt, calloused fingers gentle on my skin. God, you're beautiful. Do you have any idea how beautiful you are? Tell me. So he did. Between kisses and touches and whispered words that made me shiver, he told me. And for the first time in 8 years, I felt like someone saw me. Not Vera Ashton, the restoration expert, not Sienna Marlowe, the revenge seeker, but just me, complicated, broken, trying to find my way. We didn't make it to a bedroom. The dining room table became our world, and I learned that Killian Thorne was as attentive and careful with me as he was ruthless with his enemies. He mapped every scar, every sensitive spot, every place that made me gasp his name. And when we finally came together, when he filled me completely and stilled, his forehead resting against mine, I felt something crack open inside me. Sienna, he breathed. My God, Sienna. I'm here, I whispered back. I'm right here. We moved together, finding a rhythm that felt ancient and new all at once. His hands held me like I was precious, and his eyes never left mine, holding my gaze even as pleasure built between us. When I fell with his name on my lips, and when he followed, he buried his face in my neck and held me like he never wanted to let go. Afterward, we lay tangled together on the table, our breathing slowly returning to normal. I traced the edge of his bandage, careful not to press too hard. I hurt you, I said softly. Worth it, he repeated, pressing a kiss to my forehead. So worth it. This is insane. We barely know each other. We've known each other for 8 years. We just haven't been in the same room for most of it. I laughed, surprised. I still could. That's a terrible argument. It's the best I've got at the moment. You've destroyed my ability to think clearly. Good. I propped myself up on one elbow, looking down at him. In the candlelight. When had candles been lit? He looked younger, less burdened. Killian, what are we doing? Honestly, I have no idea, but I don't want to stop. Neither do I, which terrifies me. Me too. His hand came up to cup my face. I've spent 8 years trying not to feel anything, built walls, kept distance, made myself into someone who couldn't be hurt. And then you walked through my door, and every wall I'd built came crashing down. I came here to destroy you. I know, you still might. I won't stop you if that's what you decide. His thumb brushed my lower lip. But I'm asking you to give me a chance. Let me show you who I really am, not who you've imagined. And then make your choice based on truth, not old pain. I kissed him instead of answering, pouring everything I couldn't say into the contact. Fear and desire and confusion, and something that might, eventually, become more. We made love twice more that night, once on the table and once in his bedroom, where he worshipped me with hands and mouth until I thought I'd break apart from pleasure. And in between, he told me stories about growing up in this world, about the things he'd done and the things he'd failed to do. He didn't paint himself as a hero. He showed me his scars, literal and figurative, and let me decide what I thought of them. As dawn broke through the windows, I lay in his arms and thought about revenge, about hate, about the fine line between justice and vengeance. And I realized that somewhere in the night, I'd stopped wanting Killian Thorne dead. I just didn't know yet what I wanted him to be instead. What are you thinking? He murmured sleepily. that my life has gotten very complicated. Is that a bad thing? I don't know yet. I turned in his arms to face him. Ask me again in a week. He smiled, and it transformed his face. I can wait a week. I've waited 8 years for you. What's another 7 days? You're ridiculous. And you're remarkable. We've established this. I kissed him to shut him up, and felt him smile against my lips. Outside, the sun rose on a new day. Inside, Sienna Marlowe and Killian Thorne lay tangled together, two people bound by tragedy and death, and something neither of them had expected. Something that might, if they were very lucky or very foolish, become salvation for them both. Chapter 5. The Unraveling. I woke to an empty bed in a moment of panic before I remembered where I was. Killian's room. Killian's bed. Killian's scent still lingering on the sheets around me. What have I done? Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a space that was surprisingly sparse for a man of Killian's wealth. Dark wood furniture, crisp white linens, a wall of books. The only personal touches were photographs on the dresser, not of people, I realized as I moved closer, but of places. Landscapes, moments captured in time. One caught my eye, a burned-out building, rubble and ash, taken at dawn. I picked it up, studying it, and my heart stopped. I knew that building. It was mine, my father's estate, the morning after. I take that photo out every year on the anniversary. I spun around. Killian stood in the doorway, wearing nothing but dark sleep pants slung low on his hips, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. The bandage on his side was fresh, which meant he'd been up long enough to change it. Why would you keep that? My voice came out harsh. As a reminder of what I did, of what I cost you, of why I can never allow myself to forget. He moved into the room, holding out one of the cups. Black, 2 sugars. I remembered from the studio. I took the coffee mechanically, still staring at the photograph. You've been looking at this for 8 years. Every March 15th, I stand here and remember why I do what I do, why I can't stop, even when I want to. What are you saying? I'm saying that you've been the ghost haunting me, Sienna, long before you walked through my door. He set his own cup down and took the photograph from my hands, studying it. I told myself I was looking for you to keep you safe, but maybe I was also looking for absolution, for someone to tell me that what I did was right, or at least necessary. And is that what last night was, you seeking absolution? His eyes snapped to mine, sharp and clear. Last night was me being selfish, taking something I wanted, even though I have no right to want it, even though you should hate me. I should, I agreed, but I don't, which makes me either very stupid or very confused, or very brave. He set the photograph down and stepped closer, but didn't touch me. Sienna, I need to tell you something about yesterday's attack and what I found after. The warmth from the night before evaporated. What? One of the attackers survived long enough to talk. Dmitri interrogated him. His jaw tightened. The Volkovs have someone inside my organization, someone who's been feeding them information for months. How do they know about me specifically? That's the question. Only a handful of people knew Vera Ashton was working here. Fewer still had access to your background, your schedule. He pulled out his phone and showed me a list of names. These are the people who could have told them. I scanned the list, and my stomach dropped, because one name stood out immediately. Mrs. Chen. No, he shook his head. I'd stake my life on her loyalty. She's been with me since the beginning. Then who? I don't know yet, but we're going to find out. Today. He finally touched me, his hand gentle on my shoulder. Get dressed. We're going somewhere. Where? To meet someone who has answers. Someone who knew your father better than anyone. An hour later, we were in Killian's car, heading into the city. He drove himself, no security detail, which made me nervous. Is this safe? I asked as we navigated through traffic. Probably not. But bringing guards would attract attention. Where we're going requires discretion. And where exactly are we going? To see the one person who might know what your father really left you, and why the Volkovs want it so badly. He glanced at me. Diana Russo. My hand clenched on the door handle. The woman from the dinner party, the one who knew who I was. She's more than that. Diana was your father's partner for over a decade. Not romantically, he added quickly, seeing my expression. Business partner. She ran half his operations, handled his books, knew every secret he had. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I wasn't sure I could trust you not to run, and because Diana is complicated. She loved your father in her way. She might not take kindly to his daughter sleeping with his killer. Heat flooded my cheeks. How did you... Sienna, you're in my clothes, you smell like me, and you have a mark on your neck that wasn't there yesterday. His lips twitched. I'm observant. I touched my neck self-consciously, feeling the tender spot where he'd kissed, then bitten gently. This was a mistake. Was it? He didn't sound like he believed that, and truthfully, neither did I. We pulled up to a townhouse in the Upper East Side, elegant and understated. Killian killed the engine and turned to me. Before we go in, you need to understand something. Diana is going to tell you things about your father that you won't want to hear, things that will hurt. More than finding out he was going to sell me? Maybe. Your father was many things, Sienna. A criminal, a trafficker, a man without mercy. But he was also a human being, with reasons for what he did. Reasons that don't excuse his actions, but might help you understand them. I'm not sure I want to understand. I know, but you need to hear it anyway. For your own safety, if nothing else. Diana Russo answered the door herself, dressed in a simple black dress, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant chignon. She looked older than she had at the dinner party, tired, but her eyes were sharp as they took us both in. Well, she said finally, this is unexpected. Come in, before someone sees you. The townhouse was filled with art, expensive pieces that probably should have been in museums. I recognized several from my father's collection. Pieces I'd thought were destroyed in the fire. You saved them, I said, touching a Rembrandt sketch that used to hang in our library. I saved what I could. Your father had exquisite taste, whatever his other failings. Diana poured 3 glasses of scotch, despite it being barely noon. Sit. We have much to discuss. We sat in her parlor, and Diana studied me with the intensity of a jeweler examining a stone. You look like your mother, she said finally. She was beautiful, too, and kind, too kind for this world. You knew her? I introduced them. Your mother was my college roommate. She had no idea what Vincent really was when they married. By the time she figured it out, you'd been born, and she loved you too much to leave. Diana sipped her scotch. She made me promise before the cancer took her that I'd protect you, that I'd make sure you got out if things went bad. Then you failed. The words came out harsher than I intended. Because things went very bad, and no one protected me. No, I did fail you. By the time I realized what Vincent was planning, it was too late. The deal with Volkov was already made, the money already transferred. I tried to talk him out of it, tried to make him see what he was doing. But he was desperate, cornered by Killian's financial warfare, and desperate men make terrible choices. So you just let it happen? I called Killian. Diana looked at him. I told him everything, the date, the time, the location. I gave him the ammunition to stop it, even though I knew what it meant for Vincent. I turned to Killian, shocked. You knew she'd betrayed him? Diana didn't betray anyone. She tried to save you the only way she could, and yes, I knew she was the source. That's why I went that night, why I was prepared for violence. I knew your father would never give you up willingly. Vincent thought he could outsmart everyone, Diana continued. He thought he could take Volkov's money, keep you hidden until things calmed down, then disappear with both. He didn't understand that men like Mikhail Volkov don't accept broken deals. And you, I asked Killian, where did you fit in? I was already planning to end your father's operation. Diana's call just moved up the timeline and gave me a reason beyond business. His hand found mine, squeezed. I couldn't let what happened to other girls happen to you. Diana's eyes tracked the gesture, the touch between us, and something flickered in her expression. Surprise, maybe, or concern. So it's like that already, is it? She set down her glass. Sienna, do you know what you're doing? No, I admitted, but I'm trying to figure it out. Your father would have killed Killian Thorne on sight. Probably would have killed you too, for betraying the family name like this. My father was going to sell me to a pedophile. I think we can agree his opinion doesn't matter. Fair enough. Diana stood, moved to a bookshelf, and pulled out a leather-bound journal. This is what the Volkovs are really after. Vincent's insurance policy, names, dates, transactions. Everyone he ever did business with. Every crime they committed together. He kept meticulous records, because he knew someday he might need leverage. She handed me the journal, and I opened it with shaking hands. Page after page of detailed entries, my father's neat handwriting documenting years of criminal activity. There are names in there that would shake governments, Diana said quietly. Senators, judges, CEOs, people who paid your father to make problems disappear, to supply them with things they shouldn't have. The Volkovs are in there too, of course, which is why they want it so badly. Why give this to me now? Because you're the only one with the legal right to it. Vincent's will left everything to you, his assets, his debts, and his secrets. The Volkovs know that. They're not trying to kill you, Sienna. They're trying to capture you, make you sign over your inheritance. Diana's face hardened. Or marry you to Dmitri, which amounts to the same thing. Killian's hand tightened on mine. Over my dead body. That can be arranged too, Diana said dryly. Mikhail Volkov is not a forgiving man. He spent 8 years believing he'd lost his investment. Now that he knows Sienna is alive, he'll do anything to recoup his losses. Then we destroy him first. Killian's voice was cold, final. We use that journal to take down the entire Volkov organization. No more running, no more hiding. That's suicide, Diana said. Mikhail has too much protection, too many allies. You'd start a war you couldn't win. Then I'll die trying, because I'm not letting them have her. The conviction in his voice made my chest tight. Killian! No, he turned to me, his eyes fierce. I failed to protect you 8 years ago. I let you run, let you spend almost a decade living in fear. I'm not making that mistake again. This isn't your responsibility. Yes, it is. I made it my responsibility the night I killed your father. I don't get to walk away now just because it's dangerous or difficult. Diana watched this exchange with growing alarm. This is worse than I thought. Killian, you're compromised. Your judgment is clouded. And Sienna, you've spent 8 years planning revenge, and now you're sleeping with your target. Neither of you is thinking clearly. Maybe not, I said. But she's right about one thing. We can't run forever. If that journal is what they want, maybe it's time to use it. How? Killian asked. An idea was forming, dangerous and possibly insane. But it was the only way I could see to end this. We give it to them. Or at least, make them think we're going to. Set up a meeting, an exchange, the journal for guaranteed safety. They'll never honor that deal, Diana said immediately. I know, but they'll come for it. And when they do, I looked at Killian, we take them down, all of them. Use what's in this journal to make sure they can't hurt anyone ever again. You're talking about going to war with the Volkov family. I'm talking about ending this, once and for all. I stood, the journal clutched in my hands. I'm tired of running, tired of being afraid. If they want me so badly, let them come. But this time, I'll be ready. Killian was on his feet in an instant. Sienna, no. This is exactly what they want. You exposed. Vulnerable. I won't be vulnerable if you're with me. I can't guarantee your safety in an all-out war. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to help me fight back. I moved closer to him, placed my hand on his chest. You spent 8 years trying to protect me from a distance. Maybe it's time to protect me up close. Something shifted in his eyes, and I saw the moment he made his decision. If we do this, we do it my way. Strategic, controlled. We don't rush in like idiots. Agreed. Diana sighed heavily. You're both going to get killed. I hope you know that. Maybe, Killian said, but at least we'll go down fighting. He looked at me. Together. The word felt like a promise. Like a vow. Diana walked us to the door, and as I passed her, she caught my arm. Your mother made me promise to protect you. I'm breaking that promise by letting you walk into this. But I think she'd understand. She squeezed my arm. Be careful, Sienna. And remember, your father loved you in his way. Everything he did, even the terrible things, he thought he was protecting you from something worse. What could be worse than what he did? You'd be surprised. The world your father came from, the world Killian lives in now, it's full of monsters. Vincent thought he could control them, use them. In the end, they used him instead. She released my arm. Don't make the same mistake. Don't let love make you blind to danger. I'm not in love, I said, automatically. Diana just smiled, sad and knowing. Tell yourself that if it helps you sleep at night, dear. But I've seen the way you look at him. And the way he looks at you. Whatever you want to call it, it's going to get one or both of you killed. We drove back in silence, both lost in our thoughts. The journal sat on my lap like a bomb, waiting to explode. She's right, you know, I said finally, about this being dangerous, about us being complicated. I know. We could still walk away. I could disappear again, really disappear this time. Let you handle the Volkovs. Is that what you want? I looked at him, at this man who'd killed my father and saved my life, who'd haunted my nightmares and held me through the night. No, I want to fight. I want to make them pay for what they tried to do to me, to all those other girls. Then we fight. We were almost back to his estate when his phone rang. He answered, his expression darkening as he listened. When? He listened more. Seal the house. No one in or out. I'll be there in 5 minutes. He hung up and pressed harder on the accelerator. What's wrong? Someone broke into my house while we were gone. They got past all the security, all the guards. The mole. Has to be. And Sienna? They were in your room, went through all your things. My blood ran cold, looking for the journal. Which we have, but they don't know that yet. He glanced at me. When we get back, pack a bag. We're leaving. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Somewhere no one knows about. He reached over, took my hand. Somewhere I can keep you safe while we plan our next move. Killian, what if Diana's right? What if this is suicide? Then, at least I'll die having done one good thing in my life. Protecting you. That's not funny. I'm not joking. He brought my hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to my knuckles. Whatever happens, Sienna, I want you to know something. These past few days, knowing you, being with you, it's been the first time in 8 years I've felt human. You've given me something I thought I'd lost. What's that? Hope. We pulled through the gates, and I saw the increased security immediately. Armed guards everywhere, faces I didn't recognize. Killian parked and came around to open my door, his body tense and alert. Stay close to me. Don't talk to anyone I don't introduce you to first. We made it inside, and Mrs. Chen was waiting, her usually composed face drawn with worry. Mr. Thorne, I'm so sorry. They got past the new rotation, the ones who... She stopped, looking at me. Perhaps we should speak privately. Anything you need to say can be said in front of Sienna. Mrs. Chen's eyebrows rose. Sienna? She knows, Chen. About everything. Killian's hand settled on the small of my back. What happened? The breach occurred during the guard shift change. Someone with access codes. Someone who knew the rotation schedule. They went straight to Miss Ashton's room, searched it thoroughly. They also accessed your office, your personal files. Show me. We followed Mrs. Chen to my room, and my stomach turned. Everything was destroyed. Clothes shredded, furniture overturned, even the mattress sliced open. They'd been looking for something, and they'd been angry when they didn't find it. On the mirror, written in what looked like lipstick, was a message. "We're coming for you, Sienna. You can't hide." Killian's whole body went rigid. "Get cameras on every entrance, every exit. I want to know who did this and how they got in. And Chen, start running background checks on everyone hired in the last 6 months. Someone inside helped with this." "Sir, that's over 50 people. Then you'd better get started." Mrs. Chen hurried away, and I stared at the message on the mirror, feeling ice in my veins. They know I'm here, they know who I am, and they're not going to stop. "No," Killian agreed. "They're not, which is why we're ending this. Tonight." "Tonight? I thought we were going to plan to—" "Plans change. They've shown their hand, proven they can get to us here. We need to move while they think they have the advantage." He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Alexander, I need you." "Yes, now. Bring everyone you trust." He hung up and turned to me. "We're going to set a trap. Use you as bait." "Excuse me?" "Not really as bait, but we're going to make them think you're vulnerable, exposed, draw them out into the open, where we can end this." "That's insane." "It's the only way. And Sienna?" His hands cupped my face. "I won't let anything happen to you, I swear it." "You can't promise that." "Watch me." He kissed me then, hard and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of me, like he thought it might be the last chance he got. And when he pulled back, I saw fear in his eyes for the first time since I'd met him. He was afraid of losing me, which meant he had something to lose. Which meant Diana had been right about everything. We were both in far deeper than we'd ever meant to be, and it was going to destroy us or save us. There was no middle ground left. Chapter 6. Captive Hearts. The safe house wasn't what I expected. Instead of some abandoned warehouse or anonymous apartment, Killian took me to a penthouse in downtown Manhattan, sleek, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the glittering city below. "This is your idea of hiding?" I asked as he keyed in the security code. "The best place to hide is in plain sight. The Volkovs will be looking for us in remote locations, abandoned buildings. They won't think to check one of the most expensive buildings in the city." He held the door open for me. "Besides, I own the entire floor, no neighbors to worry about." The interior was minimalist and cold, all steel and glass and sharp edges, nothing like his estate, which at least had warmth hidden beneath the opulence. This place felt like a cage, no matter how expensive. "How long do we have to stay here?" "Until we can execute the plan safely. A few days, maybe a week." He moved through the space, checking windows, testing locks, his movements efficient and practiced. "There's food in the kitchen, clothes in the bedroom, everything you need. Everything except freedom." He turned to face me, and I saw exhaustion in the lines around his eyes. "I know this isn't ideal, but after that break-in, after seeing what they did to your room—" His jaw tightened. "I can't risk them getting to you. I won't. So I'm a prisoner here. You're protected here. There's a difference." "Is there?" I moved to the windows, looking out at the city I couldn't access. "Because from where I'm standing, it feels the same." He came up behind me, his reflection visible in the glass. "What do you want me to do, Sienna? Let you walk around unguarded while the Volkovs hunt you? Pretend that message wasn't a death threat? I want to fight back. I want to do something other than hide and wait for you to handle everything." "You are fighting back. By staying alive, by keeping that journal safe, you're fighting. Sometimes the smartest battle strategy is patience." I spun to face him. "I've been patient for 8 years. I'm done being patient." "Then what do you suggest? Because I'm open to ideas that don't involve you getting killed." "I suggest we use me as bait. Like you said earlier, draw them out." I was angry when I said that. I wasn't thinking clearly. Maybe you should have been. Maybe the only way to end this is to give them what they think they want. Which is you, married to Dmitry Volkov or dead. Neither is acceptable. Then we make them think they're getting what they want. We set up a meeting, offer them the journal, and when they come for it, they come with an army, they kill me and take you. No, he shook his head. I'm not risking you like that. It's not your decision to make. Yes, it is. His voice rose, frustration bleeding through his usual control. You asked me to help you fight back, to protect you. That's what I'm doing. If you don't like my methods, you're free to leave. Am I? Because you've locked us in here, cut off from everyone, and you hold all the access codes. We stared at each other across the sterile living room, both breathing hard, the tension between us crackling like electricity. Is that what you think? His voice dropped dangerously low. That I'm keeping you prisoner? Aren't you? He moved so fast I didn't have time to react. One moment he was across the room, the next he was in front of me, his hand on my wrist, dragging me toward the door. What are you doing? Showing you that you're not a prisoner. He punched in the code, and the locks disengaged with a soft click. Then he pressed my palm against the security panel. There! You're registered now. You can come and go as you please. Killian. No. You want to leave? Leave. Walk out right now. I won't stop you. He stepped back, arms crossed. Go ahead. The Volkovs are out there waiting. Maybe you'll make it to the street before they grab you. Maybe you'll even make it a few blocks. But eventually, they'll find you. And when they do, when they're dragging you into whatever hell Mikhail Volkov has planned, remember that you had a choice. You chose pride over safety. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. He ran a hand through his hair, and I saw his control fracturing. You think I want to keep you locked up here? You think I enjoy feeling like a jailer? I'm trying to keep you alive, Sienna. I'm trying not to lose you. The last words came out raw, vulnerable, and something in my anger deflated. You're not going to lose me. You don't know that. I've lost everyone I've ever cared about. My mother, my sister, people I thought I could trust. I'm not losing you too. I hadn't known he had a sister. He'd never mentioned her. What happened to them? I asked softly. My mother overdosed when I was 16. Heroin, mixed with something that stopped her heart. My sister. His face went blank, emotionless. She was taken by the same people your father worked with. I was 22. Just starting to build my organization. I thought I could protect her, thought I was strong enough. I wasn't. My heart clenched. Did you find her? 3 years later, in a brothel in Prague. So broken she didn't recognize me. She died 2 weeks after I got her out. Just stopped fighting. Gave up. His eyes met mine, and I saw old pain there. Scars that had never healed. So yes, I'm being overprotective. Yes, I'm keeping you locked in here against your will, because I'd rather have you hate me and alive than love me and dead. I closed the distance between us, my hands on his chest. I don't hate you. You should. We've established that I'm bad at doing what I should. I looked up at him, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not the ruthless crime lord, not my father's killer, but a man who'd been broken by the same world that broke me. Tell me about her, your sister. Why? Because I want to understand you, and because I think you need to talk about her. For a long moment, I thought he'd refuse. Then he took my hand and led me to the couch. We sat, and he began to speak. Her name was Elena. She was 3 years younger than me, and she had this laugh that could light up a room. She wanted to be a dancer, classically trained. She was good too, really good. Had a scholarship to Juilliard lined up. His voice was distant, lost in memory. I stayed quiet, just listening. My mother was never stable after my father died. Drugs, alcohol, a parade of men who were all worse than the last. I tried to protect Elena from it, but I was a kid myself, barely holding things together. When she was 18, one of my mother's boyfriends sold her to Vincent Marlowe's network, told her she was auditioning for a dance company in Europe. My stomach churned. My father took your sister. He facilitated it. Sold her to a man in Prague who specialized in exotic girls for high-end clients. By the time I had enough power and resources to track her down, she'd been there for 3 years. His hands clenched into fists. 3 years of hell. 3 years of being used and broken and destroyed. I'm so sorry. That's when I decided to destroy the entire network. Not just stop it, not just slow it down. Eliminate it completely. Every trafficker, every customer, every person who profited from that suffering. It took me 5 years, but I did it. Burned it all to the ground. And my father was my final target, the last piece of the network still operating. I spent 2 years setting up his downfall, making sure when he fell, he'd fall hard enough that nothing could rise from the ashes. He looked at me. Then Diana called about you, about the deal he'd made, and I realized he was going to do to you what he'd helped do to Elena. Understanding crashed over me. That's why you killed him. Not just business. Personal. Very personal. I couldn't save my sister, but I could save you. Except you didn't. I ran. Spent 8 years running. You survived. That's more than Elena managed. His hand found mine, squeezed. But now you're back in danger, and I'm damned if I'm going to let history repeat itself. I understood now. His overprotectiveness, his need to control the situation, his fear. I wasn't just some girl to him. I was a second chance. A way to save someone when he couldn't save the person who mattered most. I'm not Elena, I said gently. I know. I'm not going to break. I'm stronger than you think. I know that too. He pulled me closer until I was half in his lap. But knowing it doesn't make the fear go away. Every time you're out of my sight, every moment I can't see you, touch you, know you're safe, it kills me. Then keep me close. I straddled his lap, my hands on his face. But don't lock me away. Let me be part of this. Let me fight beside you. It's too dangerous. So is being with you at all. I'm already in danger. At least let me have some agency in how we handle it. He studied my face, and I saw him warring with himself. Protection versus respect. Control versus trust. If I agree, he said slowly, you have to promise me something. What? You follow my lead in the field. You don't take unnecessary risks. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments, no hesitation. That's 3 things. Sienna. Fine, I promise. I kissed him softly. But you have to promise me something too. What? Stop treating me like I'm made of glass. I'm not your sister. I'm not gonna break. You don't know that. Neither do you. So maybe we find out together. He kissed me then, hard and desperate, his hands tangling in my hair. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with desire and something deeper. You terrify me, he breathed against my lips. The way I feel about you terrifies me. Good, you should be scared. I'm dangerous. You are, he agreed. You're the most dangerous thing that's ever happened to me. We made love right there on the couch, slower this time, with more tenderness. He touched me like I was precious, kissed me like I was air, and when we came together, he held my gaze the entire time. Afterward, we lay tangled together, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my skin. Tell me about the plan, I said. The real one, not the version where you lock me away for my own good. He sighed. You're not going to let this go, are you? Not even a little bit. Fine, but we do this my way, agreed? Agreed. He shifted so we were facing each other. We use the journal as bait, like you suggested. Well, we don't hand it over. We let them think we have it somewhere they can get to it. Somewhere public, with witnesses. A bank? Safety deposit box? Too obvious. They'd just hit the bank, kill everyone, and take it. No, we need somewhere that forces them to negotiate. Somewhere they can't just storm in with guns. Where? A gala. Charity event. I'm on the board of several organizations. I can arrange an invitation-only event within a few days. We announce that we'll be auctioning off certain historical documents for charity. The Volkovs will know what that means. And when they come for it, we'll be ready. My security, Alexander's people, even some of Alejandro's men from the Spanish territory. We contain them, document their crimes, and hand everything over to the FBI. The FBI? You trust them? I trust one agent. He's been trying to take down the Volkovs for years, but he hasn't had enough evidence. We give him that evidence, wrapped in a bow, and let the system do what it's designed to do. And if they decide to just kill us instead of negotiating, then we fight. but at least we'll be on our terms, in a place we control with backup." He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "It's not perfect, but it's the best chance we have." "When?" 3 days from now. There's already a gala scheduled. I just need to add the auction element. That gives us time to prepare, coordinate security, and make sure everything's in place. 3 days locked in here with you. However will I pass the time?" His smile was wicked. "I have a few ideas." The next 3 days were strange, like existing in a bubble, separate from the real world. Killian worked during the days, coordinating with his people, planning every detail of the operation. I studied my father's journal, memorizing names and crimes, understanding the full scope of what we were dealing with. At night, we were just Sienna and Killian. Not victim and killer, not enemies or allies, just two people trying to figure out what they meant to each other. He cooked for me, badly, but the effort was endearing. I laughed more in those 3 days than I had in 8 years. He told me stories about his sister, about growing up in this world, about the choices that led him here. I told him about my life as Vera Ashton, about art restoration and the peace I found in bringing old, damaged things back to life, about the loneliness that had been my constant companion. I thought if I made myself someone else completely, I could escape the pain, I admitted on the second night, curled against him in bed. "But you can't escape yourself. The pain just comes with you." "No," he agreed. "But you can choose what to do with it, let it destroy you, or let it make you stronger." "Which did you choose?" "Both. I let it destroy the person I was, and that destruction made me stronger. But also harder, colder, until you." "I'm not some magical cure for your trauma, Killian." "No, but you make me want to be better. That's something." On the third day, as we prepared for the gala, I stood in front of the mirror in a dress that cost more than most people made in a year. Deep green silk that matched Killian's eyes when he was angry, with a slit up the thigh and a back that dipped dangerously low. "You're trying to get me killed," I said when he appeared behind me in a black tuxedo that should be illegal. "Just giving you options for distraction if things go wrong." His hand settled on my waist. "You look stunning. I look like bait." "You look like a woman who's about to take down an empire." He pressed a kiss to my bare shoulder. "Are you ready?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." "That's my girl." His girl. The words sent warmth through me, even as they terrified me. Because somewhere in the last few days, despite everything that should keep us apart, I'd become his, and he'd become mine. "Killian?" I turned in his arms. "After tonight, if we survive this, when we survive this, what happens to us?" He was quiet for a moment, his thumb brushing my cheek. "I don't know, but I'd like to find out, if you're willing." "I'm willing." He kissed me, soft and sweet, a promise without words. Then his phone buzzed. Alexander, telling us the car was ready. "Time to go," Killian said. I took one last look in the mirror. Sienna Marlowe, about to walk into the lion's den, about to face the men who'd hunted her for 8 years. But this time, she wasn't running. This time, she was the hunter. "Let's end this," I said. We walked out together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Together. The gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, because apparently when Killian Thorne threw a charity event, he went all out. The great hall was filled with New York's elite, dripping in diamonds and designer labels, champagne flowing like water. Security was everywhere, subtle but present. I recognized several of Killian's men, in waiter uniforms, more positioned at every exit. Alexander stood near the main entrance, looking dangerous in a tuxedo, his eyes constantly scanning the crowd. "They're here," Killian murmured in my ear. "Dmitri just arrived. Mikhail is with him." My stomach tightened. "Where?" "East side, near the European Sculpture Court. Don't look. Let them come to us." So I didn't look. I smiled, chatted with strangers who had no idea they were attending what might become a bloodbath. Killian stayed close, one hand always on my lower back, keeping me anchored. The auction began, Various items, nothing remarkable, just a warm-up. Then, the auctioneer's voice rang out. And now, our final item of the evening. A collection of historical documents, recently recovered. Letters and journals from the 1990s, documenting various business transactions of that era. Opening bid is $1 million. The crowd murmured. Most didn't understand the significance. But across the room, I saw Dimitri's head snap up, saw Mikhail lean in to whisper something to him. They knew. $2 million, a voice called out, one of Killian's plants. $3 million, someone else, another plant. $5 million. Dimitri's voice, cold and clear. The room went quiet. $5 million for some old documents was insane, unless you knew what they really were. $5 million going once, the auctioneer said. $10 million. Everyone turned. Mikhail Volkov stood, his eyes locked on Killian. $10 million. And I'd like to inspect the merchandise before the sale is finalized. That's not how auctions work, the auctioneer stammered. I don't care how they work. Those documents belong to me. They were stolen property, and I'm reclaiming them. Killian's hand tightened on my waist. Here we go, he murmured. He stepped forward, drawing all eyes. Mr. Volkov, if you have a legal claim to these documents, you're welcome to file it through proper channels. Until then, they're being sold to the highest bidder. Don't play games with me, Thorne. You know exactly what those documents are. And you know they were never yours to sell. Actually, they belong to Sienna Marlowe, Vincent's daughter and heir. She's the one selling them. Every eye in the room turned to me. I felt exposed, vulnerable, exactly as planned. Mikhail's eyes narrowed. The little Marlowe girl. We thought you were dead. Disappointed? I somehow kept my voice steady. Intrigued. You've become quite beautiful. Dimitri, look. The little girl who was promised to you is all grown up. Dimitri moved forward, his eyes raking over me with undisguised hunger. She'll do nicely. The contract still stands, Father. She owes us. I owe you nothing, I said, proud that my voice didn't shake. Your father took our money. $5 million for you. That's a debt that needs to be paid. My father's dead. His debts died with him. Not how it works in our world, little girl. Mikhail smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. You inherited everything from him. His assets, his business, and his obligations, including the one to me. Security was moving in, subtle but closing the circle. This was about to turn ugly. The only thing I inherited, I said clearly, was evidence of every crime you've committed for the last 20 years. Every victim, every transaction, every politician you've bought, and if anything happens to me, that evidence goes to the FBI. The room exploded into chaos. But I wasn't watching the crowd. I was watching Dimitri reach into his jacket. Gun! I screamed, just as everything went to hell. Chapter 7. The Price of Truth. Everything happened in slow motion and fast-forward simultaneously. Dimitri's hand emerged from his jacket with a weapon, but Killian was already moving, shoving me behind him as the first shot rang out. The crowd erupted into screams, people diving for cover, champagne glasses shattering against marble floors. More gunfire, security returning fire, the elegant gala transforming into a battlefield in seconds. Stay down, Killian ordered, his own weapon drawn, returning fire with deadly precision. But I wasn't staying down, not this time. I saw Mikhail moving toward the exit, using the chaos as cover, and something in me snapped. He was getting away, again, just like he'd gotten away with buying and selling children for decades, with trying to buy me with all of it. Not anymore. I grabbed a fallen security guard's weapon. He was down but breathing, just stunned, and ran. Sienna, no! Killian's voice behind me, but I was already gone, weaving through the panicking crowd, keeping Mikhail in my sights. He made it to a side corridor, Dimitri covering his retreat with suppressive fire. I followed, my heart hammering, the gun heavy in my hands but steady. All those years of practice, of preparation, coming down to this moment. The corridor led to the museum's loading dock. Mikhail was heading for a car idling near the emergency exit. I had seconds before he escaped. "Volkov!" He spun, and for the first time I saw surprise on his face. Then, amusement. "The little kitten has claws. How adorable!" He didn't even reach for a weapon. "Do you even know how to use that, child?" I aimed at his leg and fired. The recoil jarred my arms, but my aim was true. He went down with a scream, clutching his thigh. "I've had 8 years to learn," I said, moving closer. 8 years of preparing for this moment. "You stupid girl! Do you have any idea what you've done?" His face was twisted with pain and rage. "Kill me, and my organization will never stop hunting you. You'll spend the rest of your short life running. Maybe, but at least I'll have the satisfaction of knowing you're dead first." I aimed at his chest, my finger on the trigger. This was it. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd planned. One pull, and Vincent Marlowe's daughter would have her revenge. "Sienna!" Killian's voice, soft behind me, not commanding, not ordering, just saying my name. "Don't," I said without turning. "Don't try to stop me. I'm not going to stop you. It's your choice." He moved into my peripheral vision, his own weapon still drawn, but pointed at the ground. "But I want you to be sure. Because you can't take this back. He deserves to die. For Elena, for all the others, for me." "Yes, he does. But that's not the question." Killian stepped closer. "The question is, do you want to be the one who kills him? Do you want that on your soul?" My hands trembled. Mikhail laughed, the sound wet and pained. "Listen to your lover, little girl. He knows better than anyone. Killing changes you, makes you into something you can't undo." "Shut up," I snapped, but doubt was creeping in. Because he was right, and so was Killian. I'd spent 8 years imagining this moment. In my fantasies, it was clean, satisfying. I pulled the trigger, and all my pain disappeared with Mikhail's life. But reality was messier. Mikhail was on the ground, bleeding, pathetic. Killing him now wouldn't be justice, it would be execution. And I wasn't sure that's who I wanted to be. "The FBI is on the way," Killian said quietly, "along with every major news outlet I could contact. Whatever you decide, Mikhail Volkov's empire ends tonight. The evidence we have will put him away for life, multiple life sentences. Prison is too good for him. Maybe, but it's legal. It's justice, not revenge." He holstered his weapon and moved to stand beside me. "I'm not telling you what to do, Sienna. I'm just asking you to think about who you want to be when this is over." I looked down at Mikhail, at this monster who'd bought and sold children like commodities, who'd tried to buy me, who'd destroyed Elena and countless others. "He doesn't deserve mercy." "No," Killian agreed, "but maybe you deserve not to be a killer." The words hit like a physical blow. Because he was right. He was so right. I lowered the gun. "This isn't mercy," I told Mikhail. "This is me choosing not to let you turn me into a monster like you." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Mikhail's face had gone gray with blood loss, and I thought, genuine fear. Prison might not be death, but for a man like him, it would be its own kind of hell. "You'll regret this," he hissed, "when Dmitri comes for you." "Dmitri is in federal custody." Alexander's voice came from the doorway. He was bloodied but standing, flanked by actual FBI agents. "Surrendered the moment he realized we had the building surrounded. Funny how quickly these tough guys fold when they're actually outgunned." The FBI agents moved in, securing Mikhail, reading him his rights. One of them, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, approached me gently. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to put the weapon down." I looked at the gun in my hands, surprised I was still holding it. I set it down carefully and stepped back. "I'm Agent Sarah Chen. You must be Sienna Marlowe," she smiled. "We've been looking for you for a long time. I worked your father's case, and I've spent 8 years wondering what happened to his daughter. I've been hiding. I don't blame you, but you're safe now. And thanks to the evidence Mr. Thorne provided, we have enough to dismantle the entire Volkov organization. You're a hero, Ms. Marlowe." I didn't feel like a hero. I felt exhausted, wrung out, like I'd run a marathon. Killian's arm came around my shoulders, steadying me. "Can she give her statement tomorrow?" he asked. "She's been through enough tonight." "Of course, but I'll need both of you to come to the field office in the morning. There's a lot to sort through." Agent Chen looked at me with something like respect. "For what it's worth, you did the right thing, not killing him. Justice is better than revenge." "Is it?" I asked. "Yes. Because revenge ends. Justice is permanent." We made it back to the penthouse as dawn was breaking. The gala had turned into a crime scene. The museum closed indefinitely. The news was already running with it. Major human trafficking ring busted at charity gala. My name hadn't been released yet, but it would be soon. Sienna Marlowe would be a real person again, not just a ghost. I wasn't sure how I felt about that. "You should sleep," Killian said, guiding me to the bedroom. "You've been through hell tonight." "So have you. You got shot. Again." I touched his side gently, where a fresh bandage showed through his torn shirt. "I'm starting to think you make a habit of this. Only around you. You're terrible for my health." Despite everything, I smiled. "We survived." "We did. You survived." He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheek. "I'm proud of you. What you did tonight, choosing justice over revenge, that took real strength." "I wanted to kill him. Part of me still does." "I know, but you didn't. That's what matters." "Would you have, if you were in my position?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I don't know. 8 years ago, I would have pulled the trigger without hesitation. But now, after meeting you, after seeing what you've become despite everything," he pulled me close. "You make me want to be better, to believe that redemption is possible. I don't know if it is. Maybe not, but we can try, together." I kissed him, pouring everything I couldn't say into the contact: gratitude, fear, desire, and something deeper that I wasn't ready to name yet. We made love slowly, carefully, both of us battered and exhausted, but needing the connection, needing to feel alive after coming so close to death. Afterward, I lay in his arms and finally let myself cry. For my father, monster though he was. For the girl I'd been. For Elena and all the others who hadn't survived. For everything lost and everything gained. Killian held me through it all, his hands stroking my hair, his presence solid and unwavering. "I have something to tell you," he said when my tears finally subsided. "Something I should have told you earlier, but I was afraid of how you'd react." My stomach tightened. "What?" "Your father. That night before I killed him, he asked me to save you. His last words were, 'Protect my daughter.'" Killian's arms tightened around me. "He might have made terrible choices, might have been a monster in many ways, but in the end, he loved you. He wanted you safe, even if he had to die to make it happen." "You're lying." But even as I said it, I knew he wasn't. "I have no reason to lie anymore. Everything is out in the open now." He shifted so he could look at me. "I think he knew what he'd become, and I think selling you to the Volkovs broke something in him. When I gave him the ultimatum, when I told him I'd kill him to stop the deal, he seemed almost relieved." "That doesn't make sense. If he wanted to save me, why make the deal in the first place?" "Fear. Desperation. The Volkovs threatened to kill you both if he didn't pay his debts. He thought giving you to them temporarily would buy time, that he could find a way to get you back. It was stupid and wrong, but in his twisted logic, he was trying to protect you. By selling me. By trying to keep you alive the only way he knew how. It doesn't excuse what he did. But it's not as simple as him not caring. He cared. He just made the worst possible choice." I processed this, trying to reconcile the father who'd played Tea Party with me as a child, with the man who'd arranged to sell me. Maybe Killian was right. Maybe people were complicated, capable of both love and monstrous acts. "Deanna tried to tell me," I said quietly, "that my father loved me in his way. I didn't believe her." "You weren't ready to hear it, and you don't have to forgive him. Love and forgiveness aren't the same thing." "Do you forgive him for what he did to Elena?" "No, but I understand him better now. We're all just trying to protect the people we love, even when we do it badly." He kissed my forehead. "And sometimes the best way to protect someone is to let them go, to let them make their own choices, even when those choices terrify you." "Is that what you're doing? Letting me go?" "I'm trying to. Even though every instinct I have says to lock you away somewhere safe and never let you out of my sight." His smile was rueful. "You've ruined me, Sienna Marlowe, turned me into someone who cares more about your happiness than my own peace of mind." "Good. You deserve to be uncomfortable." "Cruel woman. You like it." "I do. God help me, I do." We fell asleep, tangled together as the sun rose over Manhattan, two broken people who'd found something whole in each other. The next weeks were chaos. FBI interviews, media attention, lawyers upon lawyers sorting through my father's estate and my legitimate claim to it. Turned out I was technically wealthy. My father had hidden assets all over the world, much of it legitimately earned from his legal businesses. I donated most of it to organizations that helped trafficking survivors. Kept enough to live on, to fund my art restoration work, but the rest went to people who needed it more. The Volkov organization collapsed like a house of cards once Mikhail and Dmitry were arrested. Lesser members rolled on each other trying to cut deals. By the time the dust settled, over 50 people were facing charges, including several prominent politicians and businessmen whose names had been in my father's journal. I became, briefly, famous. The girl who'd survived, who'd brought down an empire. The media loved the story. Tragic daughter of a crime lord, turned respectable art restorer, exposing the men who'd tried to own her. I hated every second of it. "We could go somewhere," Killian suggested one evening as we watched yet another news segment about the case. "Disappear for a while. Let the attention die down." "Where would we go?" "Anywhere you want. I have houses in Italy, Spain, even a small island in the Caribbean. We could hide out, just be normal people for a while." "We're not normal people, Killian." "No, but we could pretend." He pulled me closer on the couch. "I'm tired of this city, this life. I want something different, something that doesn't involve looking over my shoulder constantly." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe it's time to walk away, sell the businesses I can sell legally, shut down the rest, just stop." He looked at me, vulnerability clear in his eyes. "But only if you want that too, only if you want me." My heart clenched. "Do I want you?" "Killian, you're the most infuriating, overprotective, complicated man I've ever met. You drive me insane." But I can't imagine my life without you in it now. You've become," I struggled for words, "essential, like air or water. I don't know how to be without you anymore." "Is that a yes?" "It's a, I'm terrified, but I want to try, yes." He kissed me, soft and sweet. "I'll take it. Terrified together is better than brave apart." That's terrible logic. I'm not known for my logic where you're concerned. We started planning. A house in Tuscany, near Florence, where I'd trained. Killian would keep minimal business interests, legitimate ones, but step away from the darker aspects of his empire. I'd restore art, teach maybe. We'd build something new from the ashes of our old lives. It sounded impossible. It sounded perfect. 3 months after the gala, we stood in the ruins of my father's estate. The house had never been rebuilt, just left to decay, a monument to that terrible night. "Why did you want to come here?" Killian asked, his hand warm in mine. "I needed to see it, to say goodbye properly." I walked through what had been the foyer, now just crumbling walls and broken glass. I spent 8 years hating this place, hating him, hating you, but it was all based on incomplete information, on a child's understanding of an adult's world. You were right to hate it. This place represented real evil. Maybe, but it also represented my childhood, my mother, the good parts before everything went wrong. I stopped in what had been the study, where my father had died, where this had all started. I want to let it go now, all of it. The hate, the pain, the need for revenge. I want to choose something else." "What do you choose?" I turned to face him, this man who'd killed my father and saved my life, who'd become my enemy and my salvation. "I choose you. I choose us. I choose to believe that redemption is possible, even for broken people like us." "Sienna, I love you." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other, really. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this shouldn't work. But I love you anyway. I love you despite everything, or maybe because of everything. I don't know anymore. I just know that I do." His eyes went wide, then soft, then blazing with an intensity that stole my breath. "Say it again." "I love you, Killian Thorne." Thank God. He pulled me into his arms, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. "I love you too. So much it terrifies me. I've loved you since you walked into my house, pretending to be someone else. Maybe even before that, since the night I saw you in that hiding place and knew I'd do anything to keep you safe. That's insane. Everything about us is insane, but I don't care anymore." He pulled back enough to look at me. "Marry me." "What?" "Marry me. Let's burn this all down and build something new together. Let's choose each other every day for the rest of our lives." "Killian, we've known each other for 8 years. We've known each other for 8 years. We've just been in the same room for a fraction of that." He cupped my face. "I'm not saying it won't be hard. I'm not saying we won't have to work at it. But I'm saying I want to try. I want to build a life with you. Have a family maybe, if you want that. Grow old watching you restore paintings and arguing about whether my cooking has improved." Tears streamed down my face, but I was smiling. "Your cooking will never improve." "Probably not. Is that a yes?" "You're impossible." "Is that a yes?" "Yes, you ridiculous man. Yes, I'll marry you." He kissed me there in the ruins of my old life, and I felt something shift fundamentally. The girl who'd hidden in this house was gone. The woman seeking revenge was gone. What was left was just me. Sienna Marlowe, who'd survived hell and found love in the last place she'd expected. When we pulled apart, Killian pulled out a small box from his pocket. "You had a ring? You planned this?" "I've been carrying it for a month, waiting for the right moment." He opened it, revealing a simple platinum band with a single diamond. "It was my grandmother's. The only good thing my family ever gave me. I want you to have it." I let him slip it on my finger, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Nothing about us made sense, so why should this? "What do we do now?" I asked. "Now? We go home, we pack, we start our new life." He looked around the ruins one last time. "And we leave all of this behind." "Just like that?" "Just like that. The past is gone, Sienna. We can't change it, can't fix it, can't undo any of it. But we can choose what comes next." I took his hand and walked away from my father's estate without looking back. Behind us, the ruins stood as a testament to everything we'd survived. Ahead of us stretched a future uncertain, but full of possibility. We'd both been broken by this world, but maybe, together, we could build something unbroken, something new, something that was entirely ours. The man who couldn't kill me, the woman who'd stopped wanting him dead, and a love born from ashes and blood that somehow, impossibly, had become the truest thing in both our lives. Chapter 8. When Vengeance Becomes Love. 6 months later, Tuscany, Italy. The villa sat on a hillside overlooking endless vineyards, golden in the afternoon sun, terracotta tiles, weathered stone walls, gardens that bloomed with wild lavender and rosemary. It was exactly what I'd imagined when Killian first suggested Italy, and nothing like the life I'd lived before. I stood in my studio, an entire wing of the house converted for my restoration work, putting the final touches on a Caravaggio that had been damaged in a flood. The painting was coming back to life under my hands, centuries of grime and overpainting peeling away to reveal the master's original work. "You've been in here for 6 hours. I turned to find Killian leaning against the doorway, 2 glasses of wine in his hands. He'd changed since we'd left New York. Still dangerous, still commanding, but softer somehow. He wore jeans and a simple white shirt, his feet bare, his hair slightly too long. He looked younger, happier. The light is perfect right now. I wanted to take advantage of it. I set down my tools and accepted the wine. How was your call with Alexander? Good. The last of the businesses transferred successfully. As of today, I'm officially out of the game. He clinked his glass against mine. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, I echoed, taking a sip. The wine was local, from a vineyard down the road. We'd become friendly with the family that ran it, shared meals with them. Normal things. Human things. I have something for you, Killian said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. It came today. I recognized the return address immediately. The Italian government's Art Restoration Board. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Ms. Marlowe, I read aloud. We are pleased to offer you the position of Senior Restoration Consultant for the Uffizi Gallery. I looked up at Killian, hardly daring to believe it. This is the dream job, the pinnacle of restoration work in Europe. I know, you've earned it. His smile was proud. Dr. Carlyle recommended you personally, said you were the best student he'd ever had. But I'd have to be in Florence 3 days a week. That's almost 2 hours from here. So, we'll get you a car, or I'll drive you, or we'll get a small apartment there for when you need to stay over. He set down his wine and pulled me into his arms. Sienna, I didn't bring you to Italy to cage you. I brought you here so you could build the life you deserve. If that life includes the Uffizi, then we make it work. You'd really be okay with that? Me being gone half the week? Would I prefer to keep you locked in this house where I can see you always? Yes. His smile was rueful. But I'm working on being less of a controlling psychopath. My therapist says I'm making progress. I laughed. The fact that Killian Thorne was in therapy was still surreal. But he'd committed to it. To working through his trauma, his control issues, all of it. We both had weekly sessions with a psychologist in Florence who specialized in PTSD and complex trauma. I'm proud of you, I said, for doing the work. I'm proud of us, for choosing this, for choosing each other. He kissed my forehead. Now, come on. Dinner's almost ready, and I actually think I didn't burn it this time. That's what you said last week. This time I'm more confident. He was right. Dinner was only slightly burned. We ate on the terrace, watching the sun set over the vineyards, talking about everything and nothing. The Uffizi job, whether we wanted to plant a vegetable garden, the couple from the village who'd invited us to their daughter's wedding. Normal things. Beautiful, ordinary, normal things. After dinner, we lay in bed with the windows open, the scent of lavender drifting in on the warm breeze. Killian's fingers traced lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. I never thought I could have this, he said quietly. Peace, contentment. Waking up next to someone I love and not wondering if today's the day someone tries to kill me. Are you bored yet? God, no, are you? Not even a little bit. I propped myself up on one elbow to look at him. But I do worry sometimes that you'll miss it, the power, the control, the empire. I miss aspects of it, he admitted. The clarity of purpose, the challenge. But not enough to go back. What I have here with you is worth more than any empire. His hand cupped my face. You're worth more than anything. Smooth talker. Just honest. For the first time in my life. Brutally honest. He pulled me down for a kiss. I love you, Sienna Marlowe, soon to be Thorne. About that, I bit my lip. I've been thinking about the wedding. Having second thoughts? No, but I want to do it here. Small, intimate, just us and a few close friends. Not some massive production. Whatever you want. Really? You're not going to insist on some elaborate security? Sienna, the only people who wanted us dead are in prison. And even if they weren't, I have enough connections to make sure any wedding of ours would be secure without turning it into a military operation. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Besides, I agree. Small and intimate sounds perfect. We started planning that night, a ceremony in the garden at sunset. Alessandro from the vineyard had offered to officiate. He'd been a priest before becoming a winemaker. Diana would come from New York, along with Luca, Alexander and his wife, Dr. Carlyle, Mrs. Chen, maybe a dozen people total who actually mattered to us. What about my dress? I asked. I can't exactly wear white after everything. Wear whatever makes you happy. Wear black if you want. Wear nothing, that's my personal preference. I smacked his chest. Be serious. I am serious. You could wear a burlap sack, and you'd still be the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. His expression sobered. But if you're asking for my opinion, wear whatever color makes you feel like yourself. This wedding is about us choosing each other, not following traditions that don't mean anything to us. Green, I decided. Deep emerald green, your favorite color. My favorite color is you, but green works too. You're impossible. And yet you're marrying me. What does that say about your judgment? It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. We made love slowly, savoring each touch, each kiss. There was no urgency anymore, no fear that this might be our last time. Just the certainty that we had tomorrow, and the next day, and all the days after that. Later, as Killian slept beside me, I slipped out of bed and went to the studio, not to work, but to look at something I'd been working on in secret. A painting. Not a restoration this time, but something original. My first attempt at creating rather than repairing. It was a portrait of Killian, painted from memory. But not as he was now. As he'd been that first day in my restoration studio, all sharp edges and winter eyes, dangerous and compelling. And beside him, barely visible as if emerging from shadow, was a girl, 15 years old, terrified, hiding. Two versions of us, meeting in that moment that had changed everything. I'd been working on it for months, trying to capture not just what we looked like, but what we'd been, who we'd been before we became this. It's beautiful. I jumped. Killian stood in the doorway, wearing just sleep pants, his hair mussed. I thought you were asleep. I was, woke up, and you were gone. Thought I'd find you. He moved closer, studying the painting. Is that how you saw me, that first day? Yes. Dangerous, untouchable, like something carved from ice. And the girl? That's how I saw myself, hidden, afraid, preparing to strike. I set down my brush. I wanted to paint it, to remember where we started. So when things get hard, and they will get hard sometimes, we can look at this and remember how far we've come. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin on my shoulder. You're talented. I knew you were good at restoration, but this, Sienna, this is art. It's therapy, mostly. Dr. Rossini suggested I try creating something that represented our journey. It's perfect, but you got one thing wrong. What? I wasn't made of ice. Not when I saw you. I was terrified, because somewhere, on some level, one didn't understand I knew you were going to change everything. That's not how it works. You don't just know those things. Maybe not, but I felt something. Recognition, maybe. Or fate, if you believe in that. He turned me to face him. I think we were always going to end up here. One way or another, you were always going to walk into my life and turn it upside down. That's very romantic for someone who doesn't believe in romance. You've corrupted me, turned me into someone who says embarrassing, sentimental things. His lips brushed mine, and I love you for it. We made love there in the studio, surrounded by paintings old and new, the moonlight streaming through the windows. And afterward, we fell asleep on the couch, tangled together, at peace. The weeks leading up to the wedding passed in a blur of preparation and joy. Diana arrived first, bringing with her a box of my mother's things she'd saved from the estate. Jewelry, photographs, letters. I thought you might want these, she said, sitting with me in the garden. Especially this. She handed me a letter, addressed to me in my mother's handwriting. The postmark was dated a week before she died. How did you have this? Your mother gave it to me. Said if anything ever happened, if your father ever went too far, I should give it to you. Diana's eyes were sad. I've kept it for 13 years, waiting for the right moment. My hand shook as I opened it. My darling Sienna, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and things have probably gotten very bad. Your father is not an evil man, but he is a weak one. He's going to make choices that hurt you, hurt everyone. When he does, I need you to remember something. You are not defined by his choices. You are not your father's daughter in that way. You are my daughter. You have my strength, my stubbornness, my capacity for love, even in the darkest moments. Whatever he does, whatever happens, forgive him if you can, not for his sake but for yours. Holding on to hate will destroy you from the inside, I know. I spent years hating him for what he was, and it ate away at me until there was barely anything left. Choose love, Sienna, even when it's hard. Even when it seems impossible. Choose love over hate, compassion over revenge, life over death. I will always be with you, sweetheart. In every sunset, every piece of art you love, every moment of beauty you find in this messy, complicated world. All my love, always, Mom. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Diana held me as I cried, the way my mother would have if she'd been there. She knew, I said finally, she knew what he was going to do. Not specifically, but she knew he was capable of terrible things when he was desperate. That's why she made me promise to protect you. Diana pulled back to look at me. You've become exactly who she hoped you'd be. Strong, talented, capable of love despite everything. She would be so proud. I wish she could be here, for the wedding. She is, in all the ways that matter. Diana smiled. And for what it's worth, I think she'd approve of Killian. He's nothing like your father. He chose you over power, over revenge, over everything. That's the kind of man she'd want for you. Luca arrived next, bringing with him a familiar face. Mrs. Chin, who'd resigned from Killian's organization and moved to Seattle to be near her grandchildren. I couldn't miss this, she said, hugging me tight. You two are my favorite success story. The night before the wedding, we had a small dinner party. Diana and Luca, Alexander and his wife Sophia, Dr. Carlyle and Mrs. Chen, Alessandro and his family. We ate too much, drank too much wine, laughed until we cried. Tell us how you really met, Sophia demanded, slightly tipsy. Everyone has a story, but I want the truth. The real truth. Killian and I exchanged glances. We'd never told anyone the full story. They knew pieces. That I'd been hired to restore his art collection, that we'd had a complicated past, but not everything. You want the truth, I said. The truth is, I came to his house planning to kill him. The table went silent. Then Luca burst out laughing. I knew it! I knew you had some kind of plan. You were too calm about working for him. Wait, seriously? Sophia looked between us. You were planning to murder him? Long story, Killian said dryly. Involves my having killed her father, her spending 8 years training for revenge, and then reality being more complicated than either of us expected. That's the most romantic thing I've ever heard, Diana said, raising her glass. To complicated love stories with happy endings. To love that survives everything, I added. To Sienna and Killian, Dr. Carlyle said. 2 people who prove that redemption is always possible. We toasted, and I felt overwhelming gratitude for these people, this moment, this life I'd somehow built from the ashes of my old one. Later, as tradition demanded, Killian and I slept in separate rooms. I lay awake in the darkness, thinking about tomorrow. About standing in front of these people who mattered, and promising forever to a man who'd started as my enemy. A soft knock on the door. Come in. Killian slipped inside, closing the door behind him. I know we're not supposed to see each other before the wedding, but I couldn't sleep. Neither could I. He climbed into bed beside me, and we lay facing each other in the darkness. Having second thoughts, he asked. About marrying you? No. About wearing shoes during the ceremony? Absolutely. These Italian stones are going to kill my feet. So don't wear shoes. It's our wedding. We make the rules. Bare feet at my own wedding. My father would have had a heart attack. Good thing he's not invited then. We were quiet for a moment. Then I said, I forgave him, my father. Not for his sake, but for mine. My mother's letter made me realize I was still carrying that hate, that anger. It was weighing me down. That's big. How do you feel? Lighter. Sad still, but lighter, like I can finally breathe all the way. I touched Killian's face in the darkness. And I forgave you too, for killing him, for everything that happened that night. Sienna, you saved my life. You've spent 8 years trying to make amends for something that needed to be done. You've earned forgiveness. I kissed him softly. I love you, not despite what happened, but including it, all of it. The violence and the choices and the complicated, messy reality of who we both are. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you've got me anyway, I smiled in the darkness. Now go back to your room before Diana catches you and lectures us about bad luck. Since when do we care about luck? Since tomorrow, when I'm trusting you not to trip me walking down the aisle. He kissed me one more time, deep and thorough, then reluctantly left. I lay in bed, smiling, more at peace than I'd ever been in my life. Tomorrow, I would marry Killian Thorne, the man I'd hated, the man I'd wanted to kill, the man who'd become my salvation. The wedding day dawned perfect and golden. I woke to birds singing and the smell of bread baking from Alessandro's bakery down the road. Diana helped me dress, braiding flowers into my hair, fastening the emerald green silk dress that flowed like water. You look like a goddess, she said, her eyes suspiciously bright. Your mother would have loved this dress. I wish she could be here. She is. I can feel her. She's happy for you, sweetheart. The ceremony was at sunset, as planned. I walked through the garden barefoot, as Killian had suggested, feeling the warm stones under my feet. And there he was, waiting at the end of the path under an arch of olive branches and roses. He looked devastating in a dark suit, his eyes bright with emotion as he watched me approach. And when I reached him, when he took my hands, I saw tears on his cheeks. You're crying, I whispered. You're beautiful. I'm allowed to cry. Alessandro performed the ceremony in Italian and English, his voice warm and steady. We'd written our own vows, promises that were just for us. Sienna, Killian said, his voice rough with emotion. I came into your life as your enemy, as the man who took everything from you. But somehow, impossibly, you chose to see past that. To see me. Not the monster, not the killer, just me. You've given me something I never thought I'd have. A reason to be better. A reason to choose light over darkness. I promise to spend the rest of my life earning that gift. To love you, protect you, challenge you, and stand beside you through whatever comes. You are my redemption, my salvation, my everything. It was my turn. I took a shaky breath. Killian, I came back into your life seeking revenge. I wanted to destroy you, to make you pay for what I'd lost. Instead, you showed me the truth. You showed me that healing is possible, that love can grow in the darkest places, that who we choose to be matters more than what we've done. You've given me a future I never dreamed possible. Safety, love, freedom to be myself. I promise to spend the rest of my life building that future with you. To love you, challenge you, support you, and choose you every single day. You are my partner, my love, my home. Alessandro blessed us in Italian, then grinned. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Kiss her before I change my mind. Killian pulled me close and kissed me as the sun set over the Tuscan hills, bathing us in golden light. Our friends cheered, cameras flashed, and I felt complete in a way I'd never felt before. We were both broken people, both scarred by violence and loss. But together we'd built something whole, something real, something that was entirely beautifully ours. The reception was everything a wedding should be. Music and dancing and too much wine. I danced with Luca, who'd been my friend through everything. With Dr. Carlyle, who'd unknowingly helped me get close to Killian. With Alexander, who'd become a real friend over the past months. But mostly I danced with my husband. With Killian, who held me close and whispered things that made me blush and laugh. "I have a confession," he said as we swayed to a slow song. "I knew who you were the day you walked into my house." I pulled back to stare at him. "What?" "Not at first. But by the end of that first day, I'd figured it out. The way you looked at me, the way you moved through that house like you knew it. The fact that Diana had warned me someone might come looking for revenge." He smiled ruefully. "I let you stay because I wanted to see what you'd do, whether you'd actually try to kill me. And I fell in love with you instead. Watching you work, seeing your passion for the art, the way you gradually let your guard down. I fell in love with both versions of you, Vera Ashton and Sienna Marlowe." "You're insane." "Probably, but I'm your insane now." "Yes," I agreed, "you are." As the night wore on, as our friends gradually drifted away to bed, Killian and I stayed in the garden, dancing long after the music stopped, just the two of us under the stars. "No regrets?" he asked. "Not a single one. You?" "Only that I wasted 8 years being apart from you. We weren't ready 8 years ago. We had to become who we are now before we could be this." "When did you get so wise?" "About 20 minutes ago. It's the wine talking." He laughed and spun me around, and I felt drunk on happiness more than alcohol. This was real. This life. This love. This man. All of it was real and mine and perfect in its imperfection. We finally went inside as the first light of dawn painted the sky pink and gold. Tomorrow we'd start our honeymoon, 2 weeks in Sicily with no phones, no responsibilities, just us. But tonight, this morning, we just held each other and marveled at how far we'd come. From enemy to lover. From revenge to redemption. From a girl planning murder to a woman choosing love. "I love you, Mrs. Thorne," Killian murmured against my hair. "I love you too, Mr. Thorne." And somewhere I like to think my mother smiled, because I'd done what she'd asked. I'd chosen love, even when it was hard, even when it seemed impossible. I'd chosen love, and love had saved me. Epilogue. Ashes and Roses. 2 years later, Tuscany. The morning sun painted stripes across the bedroom floor as I lay in bed, watching dust motes dance in the light. My hand rested on my rounded belly, feeling the subtle movements of the life growing inside me. 6 months along, and I still couldn't quite believe it was real. Talking to her again, Killian's voice was rough with sleep as he pulled me closer, his hand covering mine on my stomach. "How do you know it's a her?" "Call it intuition. Or hope. I'd like a daughter who looks just like you. God help us both if she has my stubbornness. And my temper. We're going to be in so much trouble." I laughed, turning to face him. 2 years of marriage had only made him more beautiful to me. The sharp edges had softened, but the strength remained. Silver threaded through his dark hair now, distinguished rather than aging. He wore reading glasses when he worked in his study, which I found ridiculously attractive. "Dr. Marchese called yesterday," I said. "The test results came back. Everything looks perfect." "I never doubted it. You're too stubborn to have anything but a perfect pregnancy." "That's not how biology works. It's how your biology works." We'd been trying for a year before it happened. Part of me had worried it wouldn't, that the universe wouldn't allow us this happiness after everything we'd done. But here we were, preparing to bring a new life into the world we'd built. A life that would know only love and safety. A life that would never have to run, hide, or seek revenge. "What are you thinking?" Killian asked, reading my expression. "That I want to visit my father's grave, before she's born." He was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure?" I need to tell him. That I forgave him. That I understand now. In a way I couldn't before. My hand moved over my belly. "I'm going to be a parent. I'm going to make choices for this child, and some of them might be wrong, and she might hate me for them someday. I need him to know that I get it now." The impossible position of trying to protect someone you love in a world that wants to hurt them. When do you want to go? Today, before I lose my nerve. We flew to New York that afternoon. The cemetery was in Westchester, private and expensive, where the wealthy buried their secrets along with their dead. Diana had arranged for my father to be buried there, despite everything. He was human, she'd said. Even monsters deserved a rest. Killian waited in the car while I walked to the grave alone. The headstone was simple. Vincent Marlowe, beloved father. No dates, no epitaph. Just that one lie carved in marble. I sat on the grass beside it, one hand on my belly, and finally said the things I'd been carrying for 10 years. "Hi, Dad." "It's been a while." My voice was steady, surprising me. "I'm pregnant. You're going to be a grandfather, which is weird to say since you've been dead for a decade. But I thought you should know." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of fresh-cut grass and summer flowers. "I married Killian Thorne, the man who killed you. I know you'd probably hate that, but honestly, Dad, your opinion on my life choices lost its weight when you tried to sell me to a pedophile." I paused, taking a breath. "But I forgave you for that. It took a long time, and a lot of therapy, but I forgave you, because I understand now. You were trying to survive in an impossible situation. You made the worst choice imaginable, because you thought it was the only choice. I don't agree with it. I'll never agree with it, but I understand it." A butterfly landed on the headstone, blue and fragile. "I'm going to be a mother, and I'm terrified I'll screw it up the way you did, that I'll make choices that hurt her, even when I'm trying to protect her. But I have something you didn't have." I smiled. "I have Killian. Someone who loves me enough to call me out when I'm wrong, who won't let me make choices out of fear or desperation, who will fight with me and for me and beside me to make sure our daughter grows up safe and loved and free." The butterfly flew away, dancing on the breeze. "I wish you could meet her, the man you became, the choices you made. Those were terrible. But the father you were when I was small, before Mom died, before everything went wrong, that man was good, kind. He used to read to me every night, remember? Even when he was exhausted from whatever business he'd been handling, he'd sit on my bed and read until I fell asleep. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but they didn't hurt. They were just release. I'm naming her Elena, after Killian's sister, after a girl who deserved better from this world. From you." I stood, brushing grass from my dress. "I hope wherever you are, you found some peace. I hope you know that I survived, that I'm happy, that despite everything you did and everything that happened, I found love. I found a life worth living." I placed my hand on the headstone one last time. "Goodbye, Dad. I won't be back, but I'll tell Elena about you. The good parts. The parts worth remembering. She'll know her grandfather was complicated, flawed, human, just like the rest of us." I walked back to the car, where Killian waited. He looked up as I approached, studying my face. "Okay?" he asked. "Yeah, I am, and I meant it." I climbed into the car and took his hand. "Take me home." "Italy or the penthouse?" "Italy. I want to be home, our real home." We flew back that evening, arriving at the villa as the sun set over the vineyards. The house was filled with light and warmth. Mrs. Rosa from the village had left dinner in the oven, and our garden was in full bloom. Killian built a fire in the bedroom fireplace while I changed into comfortable clothes. When I emerged, he'd arranged pillows on the floor in front of the fire, with hot chocolate and the biscotti Mrs. Rosa had made. "Spoiling me?" I asked, settling in beside him. "Always. You're growing our child. Spoiling you is literally the least I can do." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire, his hand on my belly. The baby kicked, and his eyes went wide with wonder the way they always did. "She's active tonight. She knows her papa is here. How are you so sure it's a girl?" "Because the universe has a sense of humor. It's going to give you a daughter who's exactly like me, just to teach you patience." "Terrifying. I can't wait." I laughed and leaned against him. Tell me about Elena, your sister. I want to know everything before we name our daughter after her." So he told me. Stories I'd heard before, and new ones. Memories he'd been unpacking in therapy. Elena's love of dance, her terrible jokes, the way she'd snort when she laughed too hard. The sister she'd been before the world broke her. "I think she'd like that she's being remembered this way," he said finally. "That her name will belong to someone loved and safe and protected. Someone who gets to dance if she wants to, laugh without fear, live the life Elena should have had. We'll tell her, when she's old enough, about her namesake. Will we tell her about us? About how we really met? Someday. When she's old enough to understand that love is complicated, that people make mistakes, that redemption is possible." I turned to look at him. "Will you tell her you killed her grandfather?" "If she asks, I won't lie, but I hope by then she'll understand that sometimes there are no good choices, only the least terrible ones. We're going to be such weird parents. The best kind of weird." He was probably right. We were too honest, too aware of the darkness in the world, too determined to protect our daughter from it. But we were also full of love, committed to doing better, willing to work through anything. "I got something today," I said, pulling an envelope from my pocket, "while you were on the phone with Alexander." "What is it?" "Open it." He did, pulling out a photograph. It was the painting I'd done 2 years ago, the one of us meeting that first day. But now it hung in a gallery in Florence, part of an exhibition called Redemption in Art. "They bought it?" His voice was full of pride. "They want to feature it. The curator said it captured something essential about transformation and forgiveness." I smiled. Apparently my terrible first painting is museum-worthy. It was never terrible, it was honest. That's rarer than beauty. We sat in front of the fire until the chocolate grew cold and the logs burned down to embers. Outside, the Tuscan night was alive with stars and possibility. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked quietly. "Giving up the empire, the power, all of it?" "Not for a second. Do you? Regret forgiving me, choosing this life?" "Never. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be." "Even when I burn dinner?" "Even then. Your terrible cooking is part of your charm." "I resent that. My cooking has improved. Marginally." He pulled me closer, and I felt our daughter kick between us, as if she was already impatient with our banter. "She's going to be a handful," I said. "Just like her mother. And her father. God help us all." 6 months later, Elena Rose Thorne was born on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks early, and furious about it. She came into the world screaming, with dark hair and gray eyes that looked startlingly like her father's. "She's perfect," Killian breathed, holding her for the first time with shaking hands. "Sienna, she's perfect." I watched my husband hold our daughter, this man who'd been a killer and a crime lord, now reduced to tears by 6 pounds of newborn fury, and felt my heart expand beyond what I thought possible. We brought her home to the villa, where Diana waited with flowers and Mrs. Rosa had prepared enough food for an army. Dr. Carlyle sent a painting, a landscape he'd done himself, for Elena's nursery. Lucas sent a ridiculous stuffed giraffe that was bigger than the baby. The first weeks were chaos. Elena didn't sleep, which meant neither did we. Killian changed diapers with the same intense focus he'd once brought to business negotiations. I nursed while working on restoration consultations via video chat. We were exhausted, overwhelmed, and deliriously happy. "I don't know what I'm doing," Killian admitted one night at 3 a.m., walking the floor with a crying Elena. "She won't stop crying. What if I'm doing it wrong?" "You're doing it perfectly. She just needs to cry sometimes. It's not about fixing it, just being there." "I'm used to fixing things." "I know. But this is different. This is just love." He looked at me, at our daughter, and something in his face cracked open. "I never thought I'd have this. A family, love, normal things." "We're not normal, Killian. We never will be." "No, but we're ours. Our own kind of normal." Elena finally fell asleep against his chest, and he carefully lowered her into the bassinet beside our bed. Then he climbed in beside me, exhausted and grateful. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" for not killing me when you had the chance, for choosing this, for giving me a family. Thank you for being worth saving." We fell asleep tangled together, our daughter breathing softly between us, and I thought about how far we'd come. From that night of fire and blood to this moment of peace and love. My father had wanted to protect me by selling me. Killian had protected me by killing him. And I'd protected us both by choosing forgiveness over revenge. 3 different kinds of protection, 3 different choices, leading to this perfect, imperfect moment. 5 years later, Elena Rose Thorne was every bit as stubborn and fierce as we'd feared. At 5 years old, she had her father's eyes and my determined chin, and she ruled our household with the confidence of a tiny queen. "Papa, watch!" she called from the garden, attempting a cartwheel and landing on her bottom. "I almost did it." "That was perfect, Piccola," Killian called back, looking up from the business documents he was reviewing. He'd kept a few legitimate consulting contracts, enough to stay sharp, but not so many they consumed his life. "Try again." She did, over and over, never discouraged by failure. That was pure Killian, that relentless determination. I watched from my studio window as I put final touches on a Botticelli restoration. My work at the Uffizi had become the stuff of legend. I'd been featured in art journals, invited to lecture, even published a book on Renaissance restoration techniques. But my favorite work was still the paintings I did here at home, portraits of our life, Elena as a baby, Killian in the garden, the 3 of us on the beach in Sicily last summer. "Mama!" Elena burst into the studio, grass in her hair and dirt on her dress. "I did it! I did a perfect cartwheel!" "I saw, baby. You were amazing. Can I paint with you?" "After bath time. You're filthy." She looked down at herself and grinned. "I was making mud pies with Sophia from the bakery. We made 17. 17 mud pies. That's very ambitious." "Papa said ambition is good." "Papa says a lot of things." Killian appeared in the doorway, trying to look stern and failing. "Elena Rose, did you drag half the garden into the house?" "Maybe." She bit her lip, the picture of false innocence. "Are you mad?" "Furious. I'm going to have to throw you in the bath as punishment." "No," she shrieked with laughter as he scooped her up, tickling her. "Not the bath. Anything but the bath." "Too late. The bath monster has you now." I watched them disappear down the hallway, Elena's giggles echoing through the house, and felt contentment settle over me like a warm blanket. This was our life now. Mud pies and cartwheels and laughter, art and wine and sunsets over the vineyard, a daughter who knew nothing of violence or fear or running. That night, after Elena was asleep, Killian and I sat on the terrace with wine and the last of Mrs. Rosa's biscotti. "Diana called today," he said. "She's coming to visit next month, bringing someone." "Someone?" "A man." She sounded happy. I didn't know Diana could sound happy. Everyone deserves happiness, even complicated people like us. Especially complicated people like us. He pulled me close. "Do you ever think about what might have happened if you'd pulled that trigger that night at the museum? If you'd killed Mikhail?" "Sometimes. I think I'd have lived with that darkness forever. It would have eaten away at everything good." I looked at him. Choosing not to kill him was the moment I became someone new. Not Sienna Marlowe seeking revenge, not Vera Ashton hiding. Just me, a woman who'd survived and chose to live rather than destroy. That's the woman I fell in love with. Both versions, but especially that one. Which one? The artist or the almost murderer? The survivor. The woman who looked at everything she'd lost and decided to build something new instead of burning it all down. We sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the countryside. In the distance, church bells rang. Somewhere, a dog barked. The world kept turning, indifferent to our small corner of happiness. "Killian," I said after a while. I'm pregnant again." He went very still. Then he turned to look at me, eyes wide. "What?" "About 8 weeks. I wanted to wait to be sure before I told you." "Another baby." "We're having another baby." His hand found my stomach, still flat but holding new life. how are you feeling? Terrified, happy, nauseous, all of it. A boy this time, do you think? Probably another girl. The universe isn't done teaching you lessons yet. He laughed, pulling me into his lap. 2 daughters, 2 versions of you to keep me humble. You're going to be so outnumbered. I can't wait. We stayed like that for a long time, holding each other under the stars, planning for a future that once seemed impossible. 2 more years, and we'd have 2 children, a family, a legacy that had nothing to do with crime or violence or revenge. A legacy of love and art and second chances. 10 years later, I stood in my father's old study, Killian's study now, but the ghost of that night still lingered, and looked at the photographs arranged on the wall. Elena at 15, fierce and beautiful, already accepted to a prestigious art program in Florence. She'd inherited my love of restoration and her father's strategic mind. She was going to be something special. Lucia at 5, all wild curls and infectious laughter, currently trying to convince her papa to let her adopt another stray cat. That was child number 2. Born exactly as predicted, another strong-willed daughter. And Marco, our surprise baby born when I was 41, now 4 years old and currently asleep on the couch in Killian's office. Our only son, gentle and sweet with my dark coloring and his father's thoughtful nature. Reminiscing? Killian came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Just thinking about how lucky we are. Lucky doesn't cover it. Blessed, maybe. Or cursed with good fortune despite deserving much worse. Always so dramatic. You love my drama. I love you. The drama is just part of the package. We'd been married for 12 years now. The passion hadn't faded, but it had deepened, matured into something more sustainable. We still fought about the children, about work, about stupid things like whether cilantro was food or soap, but we always came back to each other. Elena wants to visit Nono's grave, I said quietly. She's been asking questions about him, about my past. What did you tell her? The truth. That her grandfather was complicated, that he made terrible choices that hurt people, but that he was also human, and I've forgiven him. I turned in his arms to face him. She wants to know how you and I really met. And? I told her, all of it, how I planned to kill you, how you knew, how we fell in love anyway. I smiled at his expression. She's 15, old enough to understand that love is complicated. What did she say? That we're the most dramatic people she's ever met, and she's using our story for her creative writing class. He laughed, that full, genuine sound that still made my heart skip. Of course she is. That's our girl. Our girls, I corrected. And boy, don't forget Marco. Never, though he's going to be the death of me when he starts dating. You survived 2 girls, you can survive 1 boy. The girls have you to guide them. Marco only has me, and I have no idea how to teach a son to be a good man. I cupped his face, looking into those winter gray eyes that had once seemed so cold and now held nothing but warmth. You teach him the same way you've taught them all. By example, by showing up, by choosing love over fear every single time. You make it sound easy. It's not, but we're doing it anyway. That night, the whole family gathered for dinner. Elena told us about her art program interview, gesturing wildly with her fork. Lucia regaled us with detailed plans for the cat sanctuary she was going to build someday. Marco fell asleep in his pasta, exhausted from a day of playing. This was our life. Messy, loud, perfect. After dinner, after the children were in bed, Killian and I stood in the garden where we'd been married all those years ago. The olive tree had grown, the roses had spread, but the magic of the place remained. Do you ever wonder, I asked, about the life we didn't choose? You mean if you'd killed me, or if I'd never let you through my door? Either, both. Every day, and every day I'm grateful for this reality instead. He pulled me close. We got our happy ending, Sienna. Against all odds, we got it. It's not an ending, it's just a beginning that keeps happening. Then here's to new beginnings, every single day. We kissed under the stars, surrounded by the life we'd built from ashes and violence and impossible choices. Somewhere in the house, our children slept safe and loved. Somewhere in the world, people we'd saved were living their own lives, building their own futures. And here, in our garden in Tuscany, two broken people held each other and marveled at the miracle of surviving, of healing, of love. The girl who'd hidden in the shadows, planning revenge. The man who couldn't kill her. And the family they'd built from the ruins of their old lives. This was our story. Not a fairy tale, not a revenge tale, but something more true. A story of choosing love over hate, forgiveness over bitterness, life over death. A story that proved, despite everything, that redemption was possible. That happy endings could be earned. That even the darkest night eventually gives way to dawn. "I love you," I whispered into the night. "I love you too," he whispered back. "Thank you for not killing me. Thank you for being worth saving." And under the stars, in the garden where we'd promised forever, we held each other and simply existed. Happy, whole, and finally at peace. The end.